The regular meeting of the Aurora City Council for Monday, September 26, 2022 is called to order. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Mayor Kaufman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Here.
Councilmember Coombs.
Present.
Councilmember Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Drinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Mercano.
Present.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Murillo.
Present.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Here.
And Councilmember Zvonek.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Announcement of the public call-in line, information in English and Spanish.
Good evening. City Council welcomes feedback from the public on both matters appearing on the agenda and during public invited to be heard. If you would like to speak and have not already spoken to an operator, please press star 3. For those watching on Channel 8, call 855-695-3475 and press star 3 when connected. You will hear a prompt confirming you are in line to speak to an operator and then be able to continue listening to the meeting. When the operator comes on the line, please be ready to give them your name and the agenda item you wish to speak on. Keep in mind you must press star 3 before the city clerk reads the title of the item you are wishing to speak on. And finally, as a reminder, council does not allow comments on any items on the agenda during public invited to be heard. Thank you.
El Consejo Municipal de la Ciudad de Aurora da la bienvenida a la opinión de sus habitantes y otros vecinos en asuntos comparecientes en la agenda y durante la invitación a la audiencia pública. En asuntos comparecientes, por favor, llame al número de teléfono 8820-7831. Esa es la clave 254-610. Seguido de su nombre y el asunto a presentar ante el Consejo y lo pondrá en espera. Las personas han de esperar el anuncio de la invitación a la audiencia pública o hasta que se les ceda el tiempo para tratar un tema específico. Va a depender del volumen de llamadas para que se conecte con la operadora. Si usted no está en fila de la llamada al momento que se invite a escuchar al público, se le colocará en espera a la última invitación para comentario público. Finalmente, recuerde que el Consejo no permite comentarios en ninguno de los asuntos en la agenda durante la invitación para escuchar al público. Gracias.
Please join me in an invocation. O Lord, our God and our Father, we come to you and we ask that you look upon this particular gathering tonight to keep us safe and guide us in our decisions. Bless our city with honorable citizens, industry, sound education, and good government. Unite our community together. Even though we come from different backgrounds, we pray that there be justice and peace in our city. Give the city council and citizens the wisdom, direction, and sensitivity to the business and proceedings before us tonight. Hear us, therefore, as we commit this meeting to the help of the community. Amen. I will do the land acknowledgement and mayoral comments a little later on. Executive session update. In executive session, we discuss negotiations for an incentive agreement, approval of the minutes for Sunday, September 12th, 2022. Motion.
Mayor Reed, do we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. See, no proclamations or ceremonies. Public invited to be heard.
Mayor, we have to do the approval of the minutes.
Okay. Approval of the minutes.
Mayor.
It's not my day today. Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to, moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by
Sundberg.
Councilmember Sundberg to approve the minutes for September 12, 2022. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the approval of the minutes for September 12, 2022.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes. Public invited to be heard.
Mayor, I'm sorry, we're waiting for Councilmember Sundberg and Councilmember Murillo's votes.
Okay.
Councilmember Murillo?
Apologies, my scribe is not working. I believe I was not in attendance, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. The motion passes to approve the September 12th council meeting minutes.
Public invited to be heard.
Yes, Mayor, the first person that we have is Ellen Wu, followed by Daryl Witherspoon.
I am presenting to you and the public a letter that was sent to the Aurora City Clerk on September 12, 2022. I'm presenting the letter so that it can be recorded as received and that it becomes part of the public record. And I will hand a copy to the City Clerk of this letter. We are a coalition of Asian American Pacific Islander organizations and leaders located in Aurora and across Colorado, writing to express our extreme disappointment and disagreement with your recent rejection of the land agreement proposal made on August 15, 2022. The recent Aurora City Council decisions, specifically the decisions from Mayor Kaufman, Councilmember Jurenski, Sundberg, Gardner, Zvornik, Lawson, and Bergen, and comments regarding land acknowledgements are an absolute offense towards the Indigenous community and their allies. This rejection shows a blatant disregard for Indigenous rights and an acute misunderstanding of history, made even more damaging coming from elected officials. The recent actions of Aurora City Council are a continued injustice to the Indigenous communities. We implore City Council to not only adopt land acknowledgements, but also to learn more from Indigenous groups about their history in Colorado. We also strongly urge Council Member Daniel Jurenski to rescind the comment, quote, "I am adamantly against this, and if we have an entire department working on things like this, like I said, unless we are going to acknowledge that this is God's country, I can't even believe this is coming to City Council tonight," unquote. America was not built on Christian values, but on religious freedom. Such a statement is blatantly ignorant and also shows a distinct lack of separation of personal religious opinions from matters of the state. The Asian American Islander community in Colorado stands in solidarity with the Indigenous community on this matter. We respectfully request that the Aurora City Council provides a reply to the Indigenous people they serve and addresses the harm that this decision has caused. Colorado has a long history of violence and discrimination against Indigenous groups. The Sand Creek Massacre being one prime example, which saw the murder of several hundred Arapaho and Cheyenne civilians.
Further public invited to be heard.
Yes, Mayor. We have Daryl Witherspoon, followed by Zach Heaton.
Hello, Council. Thanks for having me. My name is Daryl Witherspoon. I approached this council as a lifetime Aurora resident, a father of 2 Aurora High School graduates, a business owner, and a previous felon who went to prison, started businesses in prison, and came out and brought the same issues to the streets. I grew up in Moorhead Rec Center, learned how to play basketball there, learned how to swim there and everything. My daughter's reception to her graduation was at Moorhead. I seen what was going on in Moorhead. It wasn't a lot of the community in there. A couple of days later, I watched you guys roll out and engage Aurora initiative to, engage the people, where I spoke about the people that are in this community. We haven't heard of any of you guys, haven't seen you guys on the ground. I reached out to Councilman Medina. I was able to get into Moorhead, where I introduced program curriculum where I would work with parents and other business owners to teach kids LLC stuff about credit, yoga, just different forms of meditation, just the things to keep them out of the streets. There's no place for them to go. So I stayed here 6 weeks. I don't live here anymore. I have an art gallery in Vegas, so I've been coming back to my community. I moved out. I want to come back and bring everything I learned to my community. 6 weeks later, as I'm waiting for a start date from the city, I have been informed that I have a background, a nonviolent background. I got out of prison 7 years early. I got out of halfway house early and 4 years earlier off parole. I've done everything I'm supposed to do from the state, and now when it comes to me literally helping my community, a brick wall was put up. They blamed it on me not being insured. A councilman referred me to an insurance place to get me and my organization insured. They stated, "You're a volunteer. We don't insure volunteers." Reported that back to the Aurora City Parks and Rec, where I was denied and blackballed. I haven't got a response since. When I asked for these policies about how long it takes for people to do things as a felon, none of that was answered. My problem is I'm still able to have a basketball team there. I'm still able to, if I want, to teach kids rap music. That's not teaching my community nothing. I'm from Aurora. They need to learn from our own community how to change and how to do things. If they don't learn from somebody like myself who went through all these things and came back, who are they going to learn from? So there has been no direct policy. It's not even been no direct knowledge. I went to Mrs. Murillo, no response since I asked about the policy. Since Danielle Zawinski has been coming through and really trying to help me get that. She's great for that. And we support that type of stuff. When you actually have people that are really trying to change, y'all push them away, and I don't understand that. So I need, probably won't get the answer today, but it has to be something. If y'all want to engage Aurora, y'all have to bring Aurora with y'all. There are leaders in Aurora, and I'm one of them. And if I'm willing to take forth and put all my time, effort, and finances in it, we're supposed to have the backing of y'all too.
Daryl, your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Zach Heaton, followed by Ayanna Pierce.
Good evening. My name is Zach Heaton, and I am a resident of Ward 4 here in Aurora. Before I get to my address, I would like to take a moment to thank each of you individually and collectively for your service to the Aurora community. I'd also like to thank Ms. Zapata and Ms. Rodriguez for taking the time to explain the format and procedure of these meetings. On the 12th of September, I attended my first city council meeting. I decided to come to the meeting to better understand why more people don't participate in the process. I'd like to share with you some of my takeaways from that meeting. Starting at the beginning of the meeting, I noticed that the vast majority of attendees were here for some sort of commemoration with Mayor Kaufman. I was shocked to see that when the gavel struck and it was pronounced that the meeting is in session, that there was an exodus for the door. It would only take an hour more to figure out why people don't attend. Within an hour, this council passed 2 conflicting resolutions on water use and exhibited close to zero leadership on the topic of mandatory jail time in regards to theft. The theft legislation I found fascinating. I had an opinion to add on the topic, but by the time I could get to the top of the room for a speaker card or find out the form online, public comment was over and the legislation was passed. I wonder if an educated 31-year-old can't engage with the council, how could I ever expect my 72-year-old father-in-law to be heard by this council? Considering I did not have the opportunity to speak then, I will take it now. Councilmember Jurinsky, your frustration in the last meeting and cruelty towards the homeless as of late is simply a lack of leadership. To Councilmembers Marcano and Coombs, I can understand her frustration because the answer to her cry for help is political grandstanding around the budget. There was a proposal made about ankle monitors, which seemed pretty reasonable, and the whole thing was just shut down in an effort to evade it. I only ask that more focus be placed on what is good for this community rather than defeating your political rival. If legislation could be reconsidered towards an effective measure, I think that would be worth all of our time. Examples such as the above would happen less with more public input. I would like to conclude my allocated time with some suggestions that would make this meeting hold more value and attract more participation. If we are going to ask the public to surrender time with their loved ones, then the least we can offer them is a feeling of ownership in their community. I have a list available with more suggestions, but a few to vocalize in the here and now might be a QR code at the seats and on the wall, perhaps, to access the public comment during agendas. That might make it a lot easier for people to log in and talk to you guys. I also think that it sends a message that 1% of our population is 4,000 and y'all have 100 seats. It doesn't exactly send a message that you want people to be heard. So that's all I got. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service, and happy Monday evening.
Ayanna Pierce, followed by Robbie DeYoung.
Hello, City Council members. My name is Ayanna Pierce. I am a resident at Park Place at Expo Park, which has been open since the 1960s. Advertises that they have German cockroaches. They put their residents with black mold. They have numerous violations and are still open to this day. And I am wondering, who are they paying in the city to still be open at this time? Because I live with black mold. My neighbors live with asbestos, lead paint, German roaches, flooding. Our management doesn't even care as long as we fill their pockets. As a human being, I believe I deserve to feel safe in my own housing. Yet Park Place at Expo, I'm pretty sure you've heard it on the news about the gun violence, the stabbings, the car theft, all at that. 7 News has shared with me that they have done multiple newscasts on this apartment complex. And I feel if my city can't do anything to make matters better, how am I supposed to trust my city to do anything right? And that's all I have to say to you guys right now. Thank you for listening.
Robbie DeYoung, followed by Katie.
Mayor,
Councilmember, I
Can I-
think when I'll recognize anybody right after public invited to be heard.
for
I'll
those
recognize
two, I
that.
wanted to get their
I
contact.
will do that right after public. But, do you want its contact information? Is that the issue?
Yeah, just for the last two.
Please send it to me, too. Okay, please proceed.
Hi, in case you've forgotten, my name is Robbie DeYoung. I'm with the next door group Stolen and Vandalized Vehicles in Colorado. I want to let you guys know that we are going to be having a meeting where we are going to invite the public, the members of my group, which is over 1,000 people at this point. Those people that have been victimized by these crimes are going to speak before the public. They are going to be, we have invited dignitaries that are running for political office. We have invited the police department, and you will all get an invitation as well. But there will only be a few of you that will be able to address the public, because the people that need to be heard for more than 3 minutes are going to have the floor, and they're going to let each and every one that attends know what they have gone through. That if, for example, if my $600 car is stolen, but your your $20,000 car is stolen, your car gets more preference over mine. But I bet you I need my car more than you need yours. So I want to let you know, I'll be back up to speak in a little bit about the catalytic converters, but I want something more than just talk. I want you all to know how badly this is affecting your constituents. Now, 1,000 people plus, that's a lot of votes. And I can tell you right now, there are more on one side than they are the other, because they want to be heard. They want to be taken care of. They want their cars to be as important to them, to you, as it is to them. They want everyone to be heard, which is not being done here in this council's chamber. What's happening is we get 3 minutes and that's it, and then we just go on our merry way, and you guys are glad that it's over with. And I don't appreciate that anymore. I don't appreciate it. I came into this months ago trying to be as nice as I could. I'm not going to be nice anymore. We need people out here, our officers, we need to be supported We need to know that when someone is arrested for stealing or vandalizing our vehicles, that they will receive the penalty that they should, and that the victims receive the justice that they deserve. Thank you.
Katie, followed by Tanya Tabachek.
Good evening, Aurora. We're going to be talking about due process. So something happened, what was it, yesterday, over the weekend? Two male suspects were caught. One was able currently to get due process, the other one's not. Witness stated that he was shot 5 times, and also witnessed by a 10-year-old child that he was shot 5 times, his back was turned, and his hands were up. I don't think that's protocol to take someone's life as law enforcement. Also, so you guys need to further investigate that. And not only that, but then the 2 officers that shot the man twice is on paid vacation. It's bullshit. So, there's another issue too. At consent decree meetings, I didn't know the chief of police was allowed to threaten a citizen. And then once it was reported, you guys do nothing about it. Prime example, I'll read an email. Goes to the deputy city manager, Jason. Seems to me that you're more okay with your chief of police threatening the citizen's life, but when it comes to my language, it's a problem. Do your job, quit kissing ass. That's why I cursed him out, and that's the reason why I went off on him. Doesn't give him the right to threaten a citizen because I have First Amendment rights. Not only that, also noticed just now, and it's actually on my YouTube channel, one of your officers, as they were arresting her, touching her, searching her. That is not protocol. A female officer should have been assisting that officer instead of her being touched. Not okay, and it's on film. Like I said, I will be watching each and every one of your officers, and I will be holding them accountable. I'm not playing with y'all. So dig into this, and the case number is 282292, the current case where the female was groped. Not okay, and I even told him, please, can you get a female officer? He says no. Officer's name is Officer G. Gallegos. ID number 318509. I expect you guys to do something about it and get back to me on this, because I do not allow a female citizen to be touched like that by a male officer. So, have a good day.
Thank you.
Tanya Tabachek.
Good evening, Mayor Kaufman and council members. This past week was unfortunately a sad week for my father, which I'd never thought I'd be included in the car theft scare with my family. My dad parked his car outside of Office Depot around 4:30 in the afternoon last Wednesday on Havana and Ironton. Had the wheel lock that we got from one of the outside the mall, locked his car, went inside. Less than 25 minutes later, he came out when my mom looked at the handicap spot where he said he parked his car, and it was gone. I was on my way to the gym, and my mom called me twice saying Dad's car was stolen. And I didn't know what to say. Quite upset, per se. So I put it on Facebook. I also put it on Nextdoor, and thanks to Nextdoor, that is an awesome application, and also Neighbors. I also did email everyone on City Council, and I did call Councilman Jurinsky and Councilman Lawson, and I appreciate their input and their help with me as well. But someone from Nextdoor had texted my dad and said, "I believe I saw your car behind the actual place where it was stolen." So I did get there at 10 o'clock at night with my dad, because we had to go there to verify to the police that it was the car that was there and that they would send someone. So we went there at 10 o'clock at night, and we did call the police, and I appreciate everything they do, and they're understaffed. They need to get more police officers to assist. We waited there until midnight. I did not want to leave my dad's car until I saw police officers show up. We were instructed, though, if someone did show up to the car for our own safety, to leave. Now, it's my dad's car. I see it, it's in a decent neighborhood. I felt safe, and I would have stayed until the next night at midnight, until someone showed up. As citizens of Aurora, we need to gather together. We need to stand up, and we need to tell these criminals that needs to stop, and we're known as Aurora Strong, not as an unsafety city. So that was my main concern. Thank you.
Mayor, that was the last individual.
That was the last one. Does any member wish to comment, or? Very well. Adoption of the agenda. Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
motion to approve the agenda?
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by? Got all night here. Second by Councilmember Lawson for the adoption of the agenda. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of the agenda.
Mayor Kaufman,
The mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt the agenda.
Next question is the adoption of the consent calendar, item number 10A through 10E. Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve 10A through 10E.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, is seconded by
Coombs?
Councilmember Coombs to adopt number 10A through 10E. Discussion? See no discussion. Call for the question on the adoption of the consent calendar, item number 10A through 10E.
Mayor Kaufman,
The mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt the consent calendar.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 10A?
Item 11.
Oh, I'm sorry, 11A.
11A is Resolution 2022-172, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, approving the IGA between the City of Aurora and the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Arapahoe, State of Colorado, for the Parker Road multimodal study.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Victor Rochelle, Deputy Director of Public Works. This item is an IGA between Arapahoe County and the City of Aurora for a multimodal study on Parker Road from Mississippi on the north end to Hamden on the south end. This fills a gap in the network that has not been studied. A study has been completed to the north, and one has also been completed to the south. The IGA is a cost split, 50-50 with Arapahoe County. The city's contribution is $110,000. Available for any questions you may have.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Cano.
Thank you, sir. Move to approve 11A.
It's been moved by Councilmember Cano, seconded by
Coombs?
Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 11A. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11A. Call for the question.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-172.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 11B?
Item 11B is Resolution 2022-173, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, approving the IGA between the City of Aurora and the Colorado Department of Transportation regarding the maintenance responsibilities for the Highline Canal Trail project.
A brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. The proposed IGA is with CDOT, and it establishes ownership and maintenance for the improvements being constructed by the Highline Canal Colfax to I-70 project. The project is being delivered utilizing a DRCOG TIP grant. The IGA focuses on the improvements that are being constructed within CDOT right away, so it's really just the pedestrian bridge that's going to be over I-70 and the associated structures. The IGA establishes that the city will be responsible for the ownership and maintenance of that structure. And staff is requesting a waiver of reconsideration with this item as its execution is necessary to complete the construction bid award process and to maintain the DRCOG TIP grant schedule. Staff is available for questions.
Questions to staff?
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
were the bids due on August 12th?
The bids were due.
I think it says it in my packet.
Yes,
due on
the bids are currently in. They came in, I believe, August 12th. Does not sound correct, though.
Well, maybe it got extended because it just seems strange we're doing the IGA. Wouldn't it be, we do the IGA before or no?
So the funding IGA for the project that authorizes the city to proceed with the project is in place. This is the maintenance IGA that just establishes the maintenance responsibilities.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Sundberg.
I move to approve 11B.
It's moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by
Coombs?
Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 11B. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11B. Call for the question.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Zavonic? The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-173.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 11C?
Item 11C is Resolution 2022-174, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, approving the IGA for mutual automatic aid between the City of Aurora, Colorado and the South Adams County Fire Protection District, Colorado.
A brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm Alan Robnett, Interim Fire Chief. This is an IGA. South Adams Fire Department has acquired a section of property, and it made it advantageous for us to partner with them to aid in our response. We have a section of Aurora east of DIA, and they have a section that they just acquired on the west of DIA. So this agreement will respond one engine or truck from either agency to just aid in our effective fire force in those areas.
Questions to staff? Questions of the chief? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11C. Call for the question.
Mayor, we need a motion in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, motion?
Mayor,
Do we, Mayor Pro Tem?
motion to approve 11C.
Moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by?
Zavonic.
Seconded by Councilmember Zavonic to approve item number 11C. Further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of item number 11C.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-174.
Will clerk now please read the title to item number 11D?
Item 11D is Resolution 2022-175, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support of the IGA between the City of Aurora, Colorado, acting by and through its utility enterprise, the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District, DBA Mile High Flood District, the City and County of Denver, and Southeast Metro Stormwater Authority regarding major drainage way planning for 4 square mile outfall system plan.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Sarah Young, Deputy Director, Aurora Water Planning and Engineering. This is an IGA with Mile High Flood District. It's to study the 4 square mile drainage basin that is actually directly downstream of Cherry Creek Reservoir. I do apologize, in your commentary it mentions Westerly Creek. That should say Cherry Creek. But this study is tributary areas or the tributary streams to Cherry Creek downstream of the reservoir, and it actually crosses 3 different jurisdictions. Arapahoe County, whose stormwater agency is Southeast Metro Stormwater Authority. Better? Oh. Oh. That's a yes. Southeast Metro Stormwater Authority, City and County of Denver, and Aurora. The cost share is proportionate to the amount of drainage area within each jurisdiction. So Denver and SEMSWA are both responsible for $45,000 each. Mile High Flood District pays $100,000, and what we're asking this evening is Aurora's contribution of $10,000 for the full study cost of $200,000.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Sundberg.
I move to approve 11D.
Moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by?
Coombs.
Seconded by Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 11D. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11D. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-175.
Will clerk now please read the title of item number 11E?
Item 11E is Resolution 2022-176, a resolution concerning the tax-exempt direct loan to be obtained by the Aurora Urban Renewal Authority and the initial funding and replenishment of the debt service reserve fund therefore, and authorizing certain other actions in connection with such loan.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Teresa Sudmack, City Treasurer. I'm here to present the moral obligation resolution related to a loan between the AURA, Aurora Urban Renewal Authority, and NBH Bank for the purpose of refinancing a 2014 loan, which funded the construction of a publicly owned conference center and parking facility at the Hyatt Hotel, which is located adjacent to the Anschutz Medical Center within the Fitzsimmons Urban Renewal Area. The AURA Board, at its meeting of September 12th, approved a resolution authorizing the refinancing of the 2014 loan. Mirroring the terms of the 2014 loan, the resolution before you authorizes the funding of a debt service reserve in connection with the 2022 loan and specifies that in the event debt service reserve is depleted, in order to satisfy interest and principal payments, a request for appropriation is required to replenish it to its required level. The resolution also explicitly states that while it is the intention and expectation that the city makes such appropriation if necessary, the decision as to whether to appropriate the required funds is within the sole and exclusive discretion of City Council. This resolution includes a waiver of reconsideration in order to allow staff clear authority to act between this meeting and the closing of the loan. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have in this regard.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
Move to approve 11E.
Been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Medina.
Councilmember Zvonek. Oh, Councilmember Medina, sorry. Seconded by Councilmember Medina. Oh, you look so much alike. By Councilmember Medina. And further discussion?
Mayor.
What's that? Further discussion?
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Jerminski.
So I have voted no on this every single time, and I know that I stand alone on that with this council. I'm going to vote no again, and I think that the public needs to know that allowing the city, to not have to pay this off and do what they said they were going to do in the first place when they took out the first loan. This is over $1 million in interest alone on this loan being accrued and forced on the taxpayers of Aurora. So I will not be supporting this still.
Further questions or further discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
If we do not finance this, what are the consequences? Would we have to pay off the loan immediately?
The loan is actually financed through revenues, sales tax revenues, lodgers taxes, sales and use taxes, not from the general fund. So if we did not refinance this loan, it would be an event of default. Actually expires in 2024, so we have 2 years. But if we did not continue, it would be an event of default. It would look very poorly on the city. It would affect our credit in the eyes of the public. This project was financed at the request and the priority of City Council at the time, and it just would reflect very poorly on the city.
Okay, thank you.
If I can, I don't think the question before us right now is whether or not to go forward with the project. That decision was made by a previous council long before I became mayor. And so it was that council that entered into debt to finance this. And so what would be the consequence if we defaulted? What is our rating? What is our credit rating right now? I know it's different from different agencies.
We have a AA1 credit rating from Moody's, which is the highest you can have. If it's not a general obligation of the city, we have very strong credit ratings, which has served us very well in the markets. This is not directly related to our credit ratings because it is a TIF financing, which is backed by specific revenues, which are not general revenues of the city. However, it would reflect very poorly on the city, and I think it would have negative impacts from a rating standpoint, definitely would reflect poorly in the investment community.
So what would be the probable rating if there were a default?
I can't answer that question, I'm sorry.
Okay. But it would lead to much higher interest payments. Well, but this is essentially a revenue bond, is it not?
It is backed by the revenues of the tax increment.
Okay,
area.
and so you're saying that it would not have I'm not clear on whether, on your comment as to what its impact, it impacts the credit rating of general obligation debt as well?
We don't have any.
We don't have, so
debt,
it's all revenue debt. Would it impact water infrastructure debt?
Not water.
Okay,
no.
okay, very well. Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Drewski.
Can I just get clarification on why we're not saying that it would have to be paid off tomorrow. As you said, we would have until 2024. Why can't we pay this off by 2024?
Because there are insignificant tax increment revenues at this point to pay it off. The original loan was entered into as a construction credit, so it financed the construction of the project. It was always the intent when the project was constructed and was operational that the revenues from the project and the tax increment area would repay the debt. That tax increment area and those funds run through 2039. So we are extending the loan now to 2039 to match that tax increment timing. And if we did a bullet, we would not, AURA does not have the revenues to repay that.
And
So,
Mayor, can I ask another question?
Further, please proceed.
And can you confirm that this would be at least $1 million in interest on this loan to the Aurora taxpayers?
It is much more than $1 million in interest. However, it is not to the Aurora residents per se. It is within that tax increment area. Tax increment areas are established to create economic development within an area, and it's not a general obligation of the actual taxpayers or the taxpayer base of the city.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Zvonek.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure. So part of the reason, correct me if I'm wrong, from your original presentation, the reason that the revenues were insufficient was because of the loss of revenue during COVID. Is that accurate?
There are two issues you're talking about. The tax increment area has revenues that span a period of 25 years.
Yeah.
Okay? Those revenues will be repaying any debt associated with the project. because these only went to 2024, we didn't have that entire revenue stream to repay any obligations. We have been supporting the project through AURA revenues, not general fund revenues,
Yeah.
because they have not been sufficient to fund debt service. We are anticipating that as we stretch those payments through the remainder of the TIF period, that those revenues will grow to a level where they will fully support the debt on the project.
Okay, can I ask a follow-up, Mayor?
Please
Just,
proceed.
so second part is, if we didn't do this, I would assume that the only way that we could avoid the default would be to then use general fund revenue to backfill this. Is that correct? In which case, then taxpayers would be on the hook, again, to do it. And I know that would be a big amount of general fund, but I'm just suggesting that they would either be default or use general fund dollars.
I
Is that
believe
correct?
that's true because AURA would not be able to repay that obligation, and it is an obligation of the AURA, not the city in general.
That's all.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
I had asked this, I think, during study session, but the reason we had a balloon payment was because it was a construction loan, correct?
That is correct, and it was intended to be refinanced.
It was intended, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Coon.
Mayor, thank you. And that loan, that construction loan that was financed would have a balloon payment in 2024, right? Because there was always the expectation to refinance.
That is correct, and we are trying to refinance it now because the industry itself has recovered quite significantly from the negative impacts of COVID, and interest rates are moving up. So as things are improving for the sector, we want to avoid any further increases in interest rates and also get ahead of any negative impacts that a potential downturn in the economy would have on that sector as well.
Further discussion? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second.
Motion is in order. We do? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Further discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 11E. Call for the question.
The motion passes with one no vote from Councilmember Jurenski for Resolution 2022-176.
Items number 11F through 11K. Staff will give one presentation over those items on the agenda.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Alicia Montoya. I am the Manager for Housing and Community Development in the City of Aurora. And I am bringing to you the summary of 6 different agreements that we had presented in the September 19 study session for community development projects. Those agreements are for Eagle Meadows, Jewel Apartments, Peoria Crossing 2, Imperial Duplex. And the total for the 6 agreements is $3.29 million for 258 units, affordable housing units being constructed in the city of Aurora. So I am seeking final approval for us to be able to enter into those agreements.
Questions to staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Combs.
I just have a procedure question. We do need to vote on each.
We will
of these
vote on them all
individually?
separately.
Thank you.
Correct. But we're going to, now it's questions to staff on items number, what's it, F through K. Further questions of staff on items number F through K? Seeing none, will the clerk please read the title to item number 11F?
Item 11F is Resolution 2022-177, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support to fund Aurora Housing Corporation's Eagle Meadow Housing Project with home funds.
Motion is in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
Move to approve 11F.
It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 11F. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11F. Call for the question.
Councilmember Zavonic? The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-177.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 11G.
Item 11G is Resolution 2022-178, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support to fund Elevation Community Land Trust in providing affordable housing units at the Emporia Duplex Housing Project with home funds.
Motion is in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
You can go ahead, Coombs.
Councilmember Lawson.
Okay. Mayor, I move to approve 11G.
It's been moved by Councilmember Lawson, seconded by
Coombs.
Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 11G. Call for the question.
Oh, Mayor?
I'm sorry, is there any discussion on item number 11G?
Yes, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
And maybe I just want to get verification on who can get loans from this Elevation Trust Company. I had read an article recently, and basically it looked like it excluded Hispanics from getting those loans. Do you know if you can verify that?
I can look into that. I can follow up on that with you, but anyone can apply for those loans, at least for the programs or the units that we are building, anybody can apply.
So it was in the Denver Gazette a few months ago, and I am concerned that if Hispanics cannot apply for the loan program, I would not be in favor. So I don't know if this can be delayed until we get that information. I mean, I think it would be very discriminatory if they could not apply for the loan program.
You can request.
Councilmember, I'm going to do some real quick research for you, but I think you may be confusing Elevation Land Trust with Elevation Federal Credit Union. So I'm going to do a quick Google search and see if the case you're talking about is Elevation Federal Credit Union versus the Elevation Land Trust, which are two different entities with a similar name. But let me check real quick, ma'am.
And now that you say that, I'm looking at the article, and it is a different one. This one that we're voting on is the Community Land Trust.
Yes, ma'am.
So it should be two separate entities?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They're completely unrelated.
Thank you very much.
Questions, further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Jurinsky.
Well, whatever this article is, Mayor Pro Tem, can you share it to the rest of us? Because there's any business out there discriminating against Hispanics, a bank or otherwise, I think the rest of us should know about it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11. We're on 11G or 11G? 11G. Call for the question.
Councilmember Marcano? The motion
Yes,
passes.
sorry.
That's okay. The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-178.
Will clerk now please read the title to item number 11H.
11H is Resolution 2022-179, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support to fund Community Housing Development Association, Inc.'s Jules Apartments with home funds.
Questions of staff? Oh, okay. Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Move to approve 11H.
It's been moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by
Mayor, second.
Councilmember Lawson to approve item number 11H. Discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11H. Call for the question.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm rereading that article. It does say Elevation Community Land Trust. Do you want me to send you the article? Okay.
Well, this is the first reading,
Okay.
so
we
we'll
can
have
get
an
it corrected
opportunity
by
during the
reading.
second reading
Okay.
to
This
raise.
is a resolution.
This is,
Yeah, this goes.
oh, this is resolution, so there's just one reading.
Just a quick addition to that, it's actually an op-ed. It's not.
It's not fact
No,
checked?
It's an op-ed by the editorial board.
Mayor?
Well, they based it off of.
Councilmember Coons.
Just a point of order, can we reconsider
if we
right.
find, no, like next meeting, can we reconsider if we find that this is an
Doesn't it
actual
take somebody
fact?
who voted, well, it takes somebody who voted in the affirmative, right? Okay, so any member can, even now, move, is it now or next time? Or either?
Either one.
So it could be brought up for reconsideration?
So, yeah,
Okay.
so just a motion by somebody in the majority, everybody was in the majority because it was passed unanimously. And so then it's just a motion to reconsider, and it can be brought back up. Is that correct? But are you sure it shouldn't occur since it's not going to have another reading? I think it should occur probably now, right?
You can do it now and change it, because
Okay,
it's just locked in your votes.
let's go
Or
forward.
you still have the opportunity under the council rules to bring it up at the next meeting as well.
Okay, it's up to you.
Yeah, if we find that that is correct, then,
Okay.
yeah, I would want to reconsider it at the next meeting.
We're on H, right? Oh, I need to get my pin out here. Will the clerk now please read title to item number 11H?
Councilmember Marcano, I need your vote for 11H.
Sorry, I was looking at the op-ed. You got it.
Okay, the motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-179.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 11I?
Item 11I is Resolution 2022-180, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support to fund Community Housing Development Association, Inc.'s repayment of a portion of the land acquisition loan for the Jewel Apartments with home funds.
Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve 11I.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by,
Second?
seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 11I. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11I. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-180.
We can now please read the title to item number 11J.
Item 11J is Resolution 2022-181, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support to fund the Housing Authority of the City of Aurora's Phase 2 of Peoria Crossing Project with home funds.
Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve 11J.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Second?
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 11J. Discussion? I see no discussion. The question before us is the adoption of item number 11J. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-181.
Could now please read the title to item number 11K?
Item 11K is Resolution 2022-182, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support to fund the Housing Authority of the City of Aurora's Phase 2 of Peoria Crossings projects with home funds.
Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, sir. Move to approve 11K.
It's been moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem to approve item number 11K. Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 11K. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-182.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 11L?
Item 11L is Resolution 2022-183, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support of the amended and restated water lease and development agreement.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Marshall Brown, General Manager of Aurora Water. The item before you this evening is related to the Kings Point development located east of Parker Road and north of the E470. The area was annexed into this city originally in 1988. At or around the time of annexation, there was also a water conveyance and leaseback agreement that was put in place, contemplating the annexor convey all groundwater to the city of Aurora, and then we would lease that groundwater back to them. There was a replacement conveyance and leaseback agreement brought to council in 2005 that formalized the conveyance of the groundwater and confirmed the leaseback of the water to the tune of 400 acre-feet per year that would be used to irrigate a golf course contemplated for the area. The water supply conditions back then were not as well defined as they were or as they are today. So the city entered into some discussions with the owner of the property, which is now Oakwood Homes, over the last year to try to renegotiate the terms of the agreement to gain a little more clarity for the developer and a little less water use from the city's perspective. The terms and conditions of this new lease agreement that's being proposed tonight lower the use of water from the 400 acre-feet per year to 350 acre-feet per year for the first 3 years of a grow-in period, and then all subsequent years afterwards would be 250 acre-feet per year of groundwater use, so significantly less groundwater use. It also shifts responsibility entirely to the developer for any replacement water supply or associated infrastructure necessary in the future to irrigate the golf course. So really a win-win for the city and the developer. They stepped up significantly with water conservation practices on the golf course, lowering the water use, and the city is not responsible for a replacement water supply should the groundwater expire in the future. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
So this is certainly better than what we thought it was going to be, and I appreciate you answering a lot of questions along the way. Can you just tell us about how many Aurora households could use 200 acre-feet of water a year, which is the final contemplated amount for this golf course?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I'm trying to do some math now really quickly, but 1 acre with the new water conservation ordinance that was recently passed for growth moving forward, 1 acre foot of water will serve roughly around 4 households. So 250 acre feet a year would be about 1,000 homes.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, thank you, Marshall. I know that that took many meetings to get and a mediation to get that done. So thank you for your efforts there. Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Sundberg.
I move to approve 11I.
Moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by
Bergen.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to approve item number 11I, 11L. Sorry. Further discussion.
Mayor.
See, Councilmember Coombs.
Sorry. So, I think it's unfortunate that past councils, knowing that a Colorado River crisis would eventually be here. Like we knew in 2005, and we even knew in the 80s that we had problems on the Colorado River. So that they saw fit to agree to pledge our groundwater in this way, which is a source that we try to leave untouched due to the water issues that we do have. And that's part of why we have that groundwater conveyed to us. That being said, this is, again, much better than what we were looking at. I do wonder, Marshall, are we still required to say something along the lines of they're going to be fine and have plenty of water, or is that because they're responsible for seeking the water, that there's, like, how is that looking in terms of the development process? In terms of their being able to guarantee the water source in the future?
Yeah, good question. We don't necessarily know for certain when the groundwater will run out. We do know that it eventually will. How long that lasts, and what the Gulf situation down there might look like at the time the groundwater runs out. Again, a lot of uncertainty associated with that. One of the ways this new agreement is more favorable to the city is the prior agreement did have us responsible for replacing or providing an alternative supply should the groundwater be depleted. Since the two parties could not come to an agreement on when the groundwater would be depleted, the compromise was that they would become solely responsible for the replacement supply, removing an obligation, financial burden, et cetera, from the city in the future for that alternative supply. There is a reasonable chance, I think, that at some point in the future there will be additional discussions between whomever owns or operates the golf course and the city about water supply, because there are very limited sources out there. But when that happens, there is not agreement on.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I also want to thank you. I know it was a long process, and, we had to get to mediation to resolve all of this. But part of the reason that this development was building a golf course was because of the annexation agreement from way back, that they were required to build a golf course, and it was an agreement with some of the neighboring communities, correct?
Yes, and good point, Mayor Pro Tem. There was, at the time of annexation, the adjacent neighborhood of Shenango weighed in on the annexation and agreed to the terms and conditions of the annexation, or supported the annexation, with the requirement that there be a golf course constructed in the Kings Point development.
And with our new turf ordinance, no new golf courses will be allowed in the city of Aurora, correct?
No new cool season turf golf courses. So theoretically, we could see a warm season golf course or an alternative golf course, but no cool season golf courses.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
I guess a question for the city attorney's office. How does a community that is not incorporated into the city of Aurora, there was unincorporated Arapahoe County community, how do they have the authority to acquiesce or to create such a requirement on the annexation agreement?
That's a good question, Mayor. They did so by way of covenant. They have a recorded covenant on the property that was annexed.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11L. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-183.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 11M.
Item 11M is Resolution 2022-184, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, authorizing the expenditure for the acquisition of real property for the Affordable Housing Land Bank project.
Representation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Jessica Prosser, Director of Housing and Community Services. This item before you is the purchase of land for the purposes of land banking for future affordable housing. This is being purchased with the use of HUD federal dollars under the Community Development Block Grant Program. And the city will later, probably in early 2022, be putting out a request for proposal for a developer to propose a development related to affordable housing on this property. At that point in time, the community will be engaged, and there will be a process to do that. And I'm joined by Hector to talk through the purchase of the property.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Hector Reynoso. I'm the Real Property Services Manager,
in the Public Works Department at the City of Aurora. The city is purchasing 2 lots, lots 2 and 3, for a total of $1.65 million. They contain approximately 2.748 acres of land. Lot 2 would be approximately 1.5 acres, and Lot 3 would be approximately 1.25 acres. And it's contingent upon the property appraising and having no recognized environmental conditions. Staff is available for questions.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember McConnell.
thank you, sir. Move to approve 11M.
It's been moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by
Medina.
Councilmember Medina to approve item number 11M. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11M. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-184. And Mayor, can we do the announcement of the call-in line and 5-minute break before the public hearing?
Very well. The time is now 7:41. Council will stand in recess until 7:50.
Members of the public who would like to speak on an ordinance and have not already spoken to an operator should please press star 3 before the item is called by the clerk. For those watching on Channel 8, call 855-695-3475 to be connected, and then press star 3. Council is taking a short break to allow any additional speakers to sign up. Please be patient and stay on the line until the operator is able to take down your information. Thank you.
called back into order. Would the clerk now please read the title to item number 13A?
Item 13A is Resolution 2022-185, a public hearing for a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, declining the City of Aurora's participation in the State of Colorado's paid family medical leave insurance program pursuant to CRS 813.3522.
The public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. My name is Jen Lorenzen. I'm the Deputy Director of Human Resources. And tonight we are here regarding the resolution to opt out of the state-funded family leave program. I'll provide a quick overview of the program, but before I do that, I want to start with providing clarification on options that would still be available to employees should the city choose to opt out. As a local government, we have the option to opt out of participating in family leave. However, employees would still have the option to opt in on an individual basis. This means they would enroll with the state and would continue to pay the monthly premium they otherwise would had the city opted in. This individual participation would entitle them to the pay benefits afforded under family while still participating in job-protected leave options that the city currently and will continue to provide. As a brief overview, family was created by Proposition 118 back in November of 2020 and provides paid family leave to Colorado employees. It is a state-funded program which would provide up to 12 weeks of paid time off for qualifying reasons such as care of a new child, personal or family serious health condition, arrangement for family members' military deployment, domestic violence, sexual assault, and additional time for complications that may arise during pregnancy and childbirth. The leave time would run concurrently with FMLA and does have a benefit cap of $1,100 a week. Although it's a state-funded program, it would be paid for by fees collected from both employees and employers, a total premium of 0.9% of an employee's wage, which would be split 50-50 between the employee and the employer. Local governments do have the option to decline or opt out of participation, which does have a process in which we're following tonight. When we look at reasons for why the city might opt out, we first look at the job-protected leave that the city currently offers. Some of these leaves include family medical leave, FMLA, which affords up to 12 weeks of time off, employee medical leave, which would afford up to a year off, military leave, and time off under the City of Aurora Addiction Rehabilitation Services Program. In combination with the protected leave options that the city has, we do have paid benefits available to employees. These benefits include paid leave accruals, such as annual, sick, and personal leave hours, paid leave under the Healthy Families Workplace Act, both short and long-term disability, military leave pay and differential pay, emergency leave, bereavement leave, and leave available when out on the CARS program. When you look at these options that the city provides, the city's already providing paid leave in excess of family in the leave options, the pay time, and practice and procedure. Now, should the city choose to opt out of participating in family, it would require a resolution passed by City Council. And this vote would need to occur prior to January 1st, 2023. And that's because premiums would need to be collected from employees' paychecks starting the 1st of January. Actions that would need to occur prior to the city vote included public notice being given and city taking testimony. Employees were provided written notice prior to the vote and are being provided an opportunity to submit comments to City Council through a public process. Actions that would occur after City Council's vote would include providing formal notification to the Division of Family and Medical Leave Insurance and notification to employees, notifying them of the city's decision to decline or opt out of participation in family, provide them with a breakdown or a difference between the benefits offered by family versus city-paid benefits, and regulatory notices regarding FMLA posters would need to be displayed. It is important to note that the decision to opt out is not permanent. Participation may be reconsidered annually, but at a minimum must be reconsidered every 8 years. In the absence to vote further declining coverage, the city would then become a covered employer. And if at any point the city were to elect to return to participating in the family program, the city would have to remain committed for a minimum of 3 fiscal years. Prior to this evening, we did present at Management and Finance Policy Committee. We did a study session with City Council. We provided notification to employees of tonight's vote and how to submit comments. And tonight we are in front of you with a regular City Council meeting. So questions for council tonight is the decision on opting out of participation in the family program.
Questions of staff?
Mayor,
Councilmember Gardner.
thank you. I'm curious about what you said at the start, that an employee can choose to opt in individually. I don't believe that's come up before when we've talked about this. And if it has, I don't remember that. So did I hear that correctly?
You did hear that correctly, yes. If the city does choose to opt out, employees will have the option to opt in on an individual basis. They would create an account with the state and would participate in the program by continuing to pay their portion of the fees.
So the city would not pay a portion?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
So following up on that, why would an employee opt in when, isn't ours basically a better benefit program, plus they would not have to pay as much?
It would be a personal decision by the employee based on their own personal needs, any anticipated needs that they have, whether that is planned surgeries, time off for birth or adoption. But it would be an added protection for them if they chose to opt in. It would provide them the ability to receive pay from the state-funded program. So if they were to opt in and have a need for FMLA, the city would provide them the job-protected time off under FMLA, but the employee would then be entitled to the pay benefits that the state would provide them. So they would forego potentially using short-term disability, any of the paid options that the city provides.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
So first, I want to thank both of you for answering my many, many questions via email about those protections for employees. So I just want to clarify that if an employee uses family benefits for any of the reasons that are covered by family, even if the time is different than the paid benefits that are offered by the city, they would still have job protection in that instance.
Correct. While they are on a job-protected, city-approved leave, they would have that protection.
Thank you.
Further questions of staff? Is there anybody from the public who wishes to be heard?
No.
There's not. Public hearing is now closed and a motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve item 13A.
It's been moved by Councilmember Gardner, second by
Zvonik.
Councilmember Zvonik to approve item number 13A. Just further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 13A. Call for the question.
Councilmember Mercano? Thank you. The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-185.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 14A.
Item 14A is an ordinance 2022-49 for an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending Chapter 86 related to secondhand property to include catalytic converters and gift cards. And Mayor, we do have one individual from the public who would like to speak.
Okay. What, procedurally, do we go to the public first? Okay, public testimony, then we'll proceed with that.
Robbie DeYoung.
Okay. How did you jump from catalytic converter to gift cards to be on the same thing? And if we could have the secondhand property explained a little bit clearer than what it is, just secondhand property. I deal with people almost on a daily basis that have had their catalytic converters stolen. I can't believe that something happened today that I can say I agreed with Governor Newsom on something that he did in California, where it is, if you have a catalytic converter and you go into a shop and say, hey, I want to sell this catalytic converter, in California, you have to show that you are the owner of that catalytic converter. You have to show the title to the car that belongs to that catalytic converter, and vice versa. If you're buying the catalytic converter versus selling it, or selling it versus buying it, you have to have proof. This is something that will work in a state, but then it goes to the next state, and then it goes to the next state. It needs to be a national thing. So I applaud you guys for at least giving this some consideration, but this needs to be national. But keep in mind, all of this will end up on the black market. If they can't buy it or sell it, they will go to some place that will allow them to buy it or sell it. So I need to know what your assurances are that this is going to be rock solid in Aurora, so that I can go back to the people that I deal with on a regular basis and give them some kind of hope that this will be taken care of. We need more engraving of our catalytic converters given to the public. So if you guys can work on that, I'd appreciate it.
Brief presentation by staff.
Mayor.
Oh, is there further public invited to be heard on this item? Brief presentation by staff.
Mayor.
Councilmember
Can I
Gardner.
introduce the item?
Why don't we have a brief presentation by staff, and then I'll turn to you to make the motion. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. This item is sponsored by Councilmember Gardner. It is adding catalytic converters to the definition of secondhand property, which would require purchases of catalytic converters, those that purchase those to be licensed as secondhand dealers under the city's secondhand dealer code, and also to report those purchases to Leads Online, which is the electronic reporting system used by the police department. So it would allow for more reporting there. The ordinance also requires that if a purchaser is purchasing more than one catalytic converter from an individual, that individual produce information that shows that they're in some type of business as to why they would have that many catalytic converters to sell, and that the record of that be kept by the purchasing business or the secondhand dealer. Along those lines, this is related to a recent state legislative action, which the state required the record keeping of purchases of catalytic converters, but did not require those to be reported to the electronic reporting system, only that it be available for inspection. So recently, Denver passed something very similar in requiring the reporting to Leads Online. The city of Aurora had already actually taken the interpretation that catalytic converters should be considered secondhand property because of the containing of precious metals. And this will help add clarification and publicity to that stance.
Okay. Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so just want to address some of the public comments first. I understand what you brought up about, nationwide. However, we're obviously not legislators for the country, and so that would be up to Congress to do something like that. And, as far as assurances, we can only do what we can do and control what we can control. I think, this ordinance will act as a deterrent. And it's something that's enforceable. I think that was what was really important to me is having something that was enforceable. My hope and what we've seen with other ordinances that we have passed here on Aurora because of our size and influence in other municipalities, that they follow suit. And that's my hope because, if we're the only municipality that passes this, the catalytic converter can be stolen here in Aurora and then resold in another city, in a neighboring city. So, I agree with you that it would be great if these were never stolen, but we have laws against murder, we have laws against all kinds of other things, and they still happen. And so, we can do what we can, and we can have enforceable laws, and I feel like this is enforceable, and like I said, a deterrent. And so it was important to me that we do this. Denver's doing something similar, as Trevor mentioned, and so the hope again is that this will spread throughout the metro area. But obviously catalytic converter theft is a big problem, both here in Aurora and across the country. There's been news stories I'm sure several folks have seen showing Aurora is one of the leading cities for catalytic converter thefts in the country. And so my hope would be that my colleagues would support this.
Questions of the sponsor or of staff?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
And maybe I missed it, but the gift cards being considered second-hand, what is that?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that question. Yeah, gift cards, we did include this with the language, and the reason for that being we made a note a few years back that would be a good clarification to have if we did edits to this section of the city code. Gift cards are frequently used in various criminal activity. They do contain identifying marks. So we've considered them secondhand property. We did get some pushback in the past. We still required them to license and report gift card purchases online, but it was a note we had made that it would be a good clarification to add to the ordinance.
And then follow up, please.
Please proceed.
And since Denver didn't require the electronic system and we are requiring it to be put in is that right, electronically?
It was the state that didn't require the electronic system. Yeah, Denver required those. That's why Denver did this, yep.
Okay, so would that help police officers as well if there was a pattern?
Yeah, yes, it would, because now it's actually available in that database. It's a nationwide database that the police department uses extensively to look at what's being purchased, what's being sold, who's selling it. So yes, that's exactly it. It would provide the pattern. And also importantly, as you heard about etching or putting serial numbers on catalytic converters, those would need to be recorded into that lead system. So if it would turn up somewhere, that serial number would need to be reported by the purchaser in the system, and it would flag it as stolen.
Okay, thank you.
A question of the city attorney's office. Is the city subject to the single subject rule? And if so, does this fit within the single subject?
This one fits with the single subject rule. We're fine.
Further questions of staff or the sponsor?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. So first, I want to thank Councilmember Gardner for sponsoring this. This is something that I had actually reached into the city, to the tax and licensing about shortly after he did. So I'm glad that you beat me to the punch on it, but it's a really great policy. I do have a question for Deputy City Manager Batchelor. And this actually goes to one of our constituents' questions about the catalytic converter etching. So we ran out of supplies for the family safety checks about a month ago now, and I just wanted to see if you could give us an update as to where we are restocking and if we can get more of those etching as well.
The resupply, I think, was primarily for steering wheel locking mechanisms. We've ordered those. My understanding on the etching kits is that's primarily something we're doing through the state, but I will get you an update to all of council as to the status on both those.
All right, great. Thank you.
Further questions of the sponsor or staff?
Mayor, I have a question.
Councilmember Lawson.
Trevor, I have a question. So I know that it's going to be a requirement for them to put it into this system. How do you know for sure? I mean, I know we can't track everything, but the honor system in terms of people actually doing this, because there could be some shops that are doing some stuff behind the scenes, and they're not doing this. So how are you going to do enforcement?
Yeah, and that's always a concern and an issue, and something we've had come up periodically in the past, even with the existing secondhand dealer code. We had, some examples, a cell phone store that was fencing stolen cell phones that were not being reported. And what happened on that one was one of the people who had stolen a cell phone said he was going to that store to sell those cell phones because he knew they didn't record the identification. With that information, the police department then went into that store and then found additional stolen materials and said, where did these come from? And that was very clear that they violated that, and then both criminal and administrative action would be taken. So that was one example of kind of how we would address that. Same thing with catalytic converters. If somebody's purchasing them and you find out, well, how was this not reported through an inspection, or somebody selling them there, then we would take action based on that.
Further questions of the sponsor or staff?
Mayor, Councilmember Murillo.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yeah, it just would appear to me that the etching that Councilmember Marcano was describing, that he was supporting with the steering wheel locks would complement this process or this ordinance as well. So I just wanted to kind of make that observation that there are multiple ways, kind of folks outlined today, that folks can track that.
Further questions of the staff or sponsor? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to.
Councilmember Gardner.
Motion to approve 14A.
Moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by
Marcano.
Marcano, seconded by Councilmember Marcano, to approve item number 14A. Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is adoption of item number 14A. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2022-49.
Would the clerk now please read the title to item number 14B?
Item 14B is ordinance 2022-50, an ordinance authorizing the city of Aurora, Colorado to exercise the power of eminent domain for acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the homestake project.
Brief presentation by staff.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. For the record, my name is Alexandra Davis, Deputy Director of Water Resources. This item is brought to you tonight due to where we started was, as you are very aware, we have the homestake project is a significant water supply project that belongs to both Colorado Springs and the city of Aurora. That project has a 66-inch pipeline that goes many, many miles. I was looking up the exact number, and I didn't find it before I got here, so I can't tell you exactly how long it is, but it's quite significant. That pipeline is nearing its end of life, and the cities have been working diligently to replace it, replace certain portions each year. In that process, the homestake team discovered that one portion of the pipeline is outside of the pre-existing easement, and so that easement needs to be amended, or we need a new easement to cover the pipeline so that it's properly legally in the right place, and so that we can go in and replace it in order to make sure that this pipeline continues to function. In that process, the city of Colorado Springs has really led this effort, and their real estate people approached and have been in discussions with the landowner, Ms. Yount, and working hard to find an amicable a negotiation whereby she would be willing to sell us the easements that we need. The easement size is approximately 1.5 acres, 1.4 acres. It's not very large. The cities have been willing to pay for appraisals. They've been willing to vacate some portion of the existing easements once we get the new easement in place. They've been working very hard to get this done amicably. Mrs. Yount has proven a little bit more difficult in the sense that she, at least through her lawyer, has been unwilling to agree to the terms and conditions for an easement. This has delayed the pipeline replacement and repair currently for over a year, and the cities are feeling that it's important to get that project underway again. When one of those pipelines break, it can be very significant. Fortunately, most of the pipeline is in very rural areas and isn't likely to cause too much property damage, but it can prevent water supply from reaching the city for however long it takes to repair that pipeline, and that can be significant. So ensuring that these pipes are properly replaced and working appropriately is a high priority for the department and for the city. With that, because of the difficulty reaching an amicable deal with Ms. Yount, we would like to ask the City Council to enter into this ordinance to allow the cities to move forward together with eminent domain, should that be necessary. The City of Colorado Springs is also approaching I think it's their City Council. They have a slightly different structure than we do. And tomorrow, the City of Colorado Springs resolution will become effective immediately, and ours will take a little bit longer.
All right. Questions to staff?
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
And obviously, we try not to use eminent domain unless absolutely necessary, and this is vital to our water supply. When it goes into eminent domain, that property owner would still get reimbursed, correctly?
Absolutely. According to the appraisal, the property owner will get market value for the easement.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Thank you, Alex. How long has the pipe been there?
So the Homestake project was originally constructed in the 50s and 60s, so for 60 years.
And has the same landowner been there that entire time, or come along later, perhaps?
Perhaps came along later. I really don't know the answer to that question. I would be happy to look it up.
And have we offered more than market value?
That's a great question. What I understand is that we offered what we had appraised the value at, and I'm not exactly sure all that has been offered because we've not been leading those negotiations. Colorado Springs has, but I could find that out as well.
And the resistance offered from the landowner, is it an exorbitant amount of money or just a simple refusal to sell?
It's a little bit of lack of responsiveness, not answering emails and letters, and a little bit of, I believe the last difference, and please don't hold me to this number, this is my recollection of the difference in the number, was about $60,000 to $70,000. So fairly significant difference between our appraised value and what the landowner was seeking. It's also a very small area of land, and the easement has been there before. One of the difficulties, one of the requests of the landowner was that they be allowed to build on the easement, and of course that would damage the pipeline or could potentially damage or threaten the pipeline. So that was one of the requests that we felt we could not agree to.
Final question, I think. The number of people that rely upon that water source through that pipeline, do you know the number approximately?
I believe that Colorado Springs is about, this is going to be a guess. I'm sorry, Councilman Sunderberg. I'm guessing 600,000 people in Colorado Springs. I know it's slightly larger than Aurora, and then Aurora, of course, is close to 400,000.
So approximately 1 million people are relying on that pipeline.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And it is a significant pipeline. I mean, that's a really important part of our infrastructure.
Further questions of staff?
Yes.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
So there's obviously the access for repairs that are at issue. Are there any other potential consequences of not having that easement besides not having access to make repairs?
If I may, it's the topography of where that pipe is currently located, that it cannot safely be moved outside of the existing easement, and that's why the easement is needed.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve 14B.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Sundberg, to approve item number 14C.
B.
Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 14C. Call for the question.
Mayor, this is for 14B.
14B, all right.
Councilmember Coombs and Jurenski.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2022-50.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 14C.
Item 14C is ordinance 2022-51, an ordinance authorizing the city of Aurora, Colorado to exercise the power of eminent domain for acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the affordable housing land bank project.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Hector Reynoso. I'm the manager of the Rural Property Services Division in the Public Works Department at the City of Aurora. These are the same two lots that were part of item 11M, like Mary. The city is acquiring lots 2 and lot 3, which contain a total of approximately 2.75 acres of land for $1.65 million. As part of the negotiations, the owners have requested a passage of an ordinance authorizing eminent domain so that they may benefit from a Section 1033 tax deferral, which is it allows property owners to sell land under the threat of eminent domain to the government and defer any capital gains that they may receive from the sale, from the proceeds of that sale, for up to 18 months, whereas a traditional 1031 only allows, I think it's 90 days, with a replacement property to be secured within 45. The 1033 allows you much more time, and there's less fees involved with it. Prior to proceeding with any eminent domain action, we would come back to council at an executive session.
Questions of staff?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
So since it came up under 11M and we passed that one?
So under M, and Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the resolution was authorizing the acquisition or the expenditure of funds over $500,000. This ordinance is authorizing eminent domain in the event that amicable negotiations are unsuccessful.
So it wouldn't have been, I guess it wouldn't have come first.
Correct.
Okay.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Mercado.
Thank you, sir. Move to approve 14C.
Moved by Councilmember Mercado, seconded by
Coombs.
Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 14C. Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 14C. Call for the question.
Councilmember Jurenski and Zvonek.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2022-51.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 14D.
Item 14D is ordinance 2022-52, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, adding sections 2-597 to the City Code of the City of Aurora regarding consideration of fiscal impacts for items being presented to council for consideration.
Brief presentation by staff.
Thank you, Jack Bajorek, Deputy City Attorney. Procedurally, an item very similar to this, but in resolution form, was presented to council at the request of council members Marcano and Coombs at the last council study session. The purpose of that resolution was to amend the council rules of order to require the consideration of information that would be included in a financial note in items that are presented by council or presented to council for approval. During the discussion, the direction from council was to change this to an ordinance form so that the requirement would be codified in the city code. The mayor wanted input on additional items. And the final product is an ordinance to amend the city code that does a couple of things. First, it clarifies the obligation of the city manager to ensure that all items that are presented to council include the fiscal note information. That includes potential expenditures required and where those expenditures would come from, or other impacts on the city coffers prior to presenting an item. The second part of the ordinance, is an obligation of a council member. When a council member sponsors an item that has expected expenditures or a reduction in revenue, the council members is obligated to identify sources of funds or offsets for that expenditure increase or reduction in revenue. That second section only applies if the item is being presented outside of the normal budget process, with the anticipation that during that process it would be automatic to find those additional funds and have that discussion as part of the budget process. With that in mind, this still is Councilmember Marcano, Councilmember Coombs, and now the mayor's item. So I'll defer to questions, any questions I have, but defer to them for additional information.
Let me just say that it's if the city's flying blind fiscally, because what in effect, it's probably okay now because, well, it's never okay not to have fiscal discipline, but we're in a relatively good revenue position now. I don't think that, given what's occurring with the economy, that may not certainly last for very long. And when you're flying blind by not knowing what the costs are or what you're doing, what that means is one or two things. First of all, it's going to be made up through supplemental appropriations. And secondly, what could occur is that at one end, we're increasing spending or reducing revenue, and then at the other end, if surplus revenue isn't there, then we're cutting other programs to make up for the difference. I've never seen, in all my years, decades of government, I've never seen this. It is unprofessional, and it just really needs to stop. And so, in discussions with Councilmember Coombs and Councilmember Connell, they've accepted much tougher language here that requires a fiscal note on all matters coming forward, and requires council members to responsibly identify if they're going to increase spending. They're going to outside the budget setting process, they're going to identify a cut. And conversely, if they're same with lowering revenue, they're going to show where the cuts are going to come from in order for that proposal to proceed.
Mayor?
Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I think it's fine to have this as an ordinance. I will say I don't think anyone ever intentionally did anything to, deceive the public. Typically, I think even when we have had these proposals, it usually does come with a fiscal note. Even if you didn't ask for one, I think usually staff prepares it for us. So I'm good with it. My question would be, FTEs would also be considered in that if we're increasing a program that needs more additional staff, that would be part of the fiscal note?
Well, I would assume so, because the fiscal note requires the consideration and the identification of the assumptions. And I think if you had additional staff, that would be one of the assumptions.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Councilmember Zvonek.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm in full agreement both with the idea of having a fiscal note and then the pay-go requirement. But to the pay-go requirement, is there, and this is both for the sponsors as well as staff, is there some sort of a reasonable timeline that we could require for staff to come back? And the reason why I ask is, let's just, a scenario, let's say that Councilmember Marcano brings forward a tax cut, which he typically does, and in order for him to then know what he would need to cut, right, to find the offset, he would need to know how much it is. And I think there should be some sort of a reasonable turnaround. I know that in the legislature, there's amendments offered on the floor and there's fiscal notes, right away. And so I think what I don't want to see happen is this used in a way to try to slow things down. And so I think if there's some sort of a requirement, and there can be maybe an out clause where if it's, let's say 72 hours, and if it's going to take longer than that, you go back to the member. But I just want to know, is there a reasonable amount of time that we could add to this that a fiscal note would be required? Because if it's going to then fall to us to find that offset, I think it would be helpful to have that.
So you don't have, when it's introduced, you don't, well, I mean, you should. Well, in the legislature, they have a fiscal note. No, I don't, do they have a fiscal note when it's introduced?
Yeah.
When it's introduced. So here, I think I'm okay with it, when it comes to the floor for a vote, it needs a fiscal note.
Yeah.
So there is time to develop that. And I think that the culture will change in this city to where staff, I think, will get used to a format for a fiscal note and delivering a fiscal note on a timely basis. But this proposal really says to be voted on, you have to have a fiscal note. I think there's just adequate time to be able to develop that from the point in time that a proposal is introduced to the time that it reaches the floor.
Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Coombs.
So the original resolution has the section of the rules that indicates that council should give staff adequate time. It doesn't identify what that time frame is, so I think certainly we can have a conversation about what constitutes adequate time, but our existing council rules do say staff should have adequate time. I think that historically, anything that goes through a policy committee study session and then comes to the floor, that's enough time to provide that, as long as staff are aware that they need to do so. And historically, that is something staff have done. But I would defer to City Manager Twombly on what would be a reasonable amount of time.
I don't know. I think we're going to need some experience to know if there's a problem or not. So right now, we just don't know. I don't believe that there will be, but experience will tell us whether or not there is one.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Can we get the city manager to respond?
Yes, and in our discussions at the staff level, we've had that if an item goes through the normal process, policy, study session, before coming to the floor, that should be adequate time. And if for some reason it wouldn't be, we would get with the sponsor for potential extension if that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Further, are there any further questions? And then I'll go, Councilmember Coombs.
To the city manager's point, so our council rules do permit bringing things straight to the floor. So that kind of creates a little bit of a conflict if we're just relying on the original process. So do you have any thoughts about how we would address that conflict between those provisions? You can bring it straight to the floor if you want, and we have to have a fiscal note, and that doesn't provide enough time. Is there a time frame that you might recommend for something that gets brought straight to the floor and doesn't go through the process?
Well, the time frame that we have discussed is 7 days, so that if there's something that, for example, is going to the city attorney's office and an ordinance is being created, we would ask that we have 7 days to analyze that before it comes to the floor.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
would you be okay with adding into that section A or section B, council member responsibility, that the council member provide information on the program at least 7 days prior to the item going to the floor, to give adequate time for staff to provide that fiscal note?
Councilmember Coombs, I would urge at this time that we not put any deadlines on it, because if we have experience and there's a problem, but a member should understand that not to push something that they're going to have, that they in fact have to wait. I think if there's an emergency, then clearly the staff is going to move reflective of that emergency. But if it's a non-emergency issue, then I think that member is just going to have to wait for a reasonable time. If we determine that there's a problem, then let's figure out, based on some history, what a deadline ought to be. But not having any history, not having experience, I'm reluctant personally to place a deadline on this. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I was just going to basically say the same thing, that I think if you're putting forth an ordinance and we know we have to put a fiscal note on it, I mean, it's up to us, to be responsible and make sure that we go through the right process. And I mean, even when you do work with our attorneys to draft a resolution or ordinance, there is ample time before, it comes to a city council meeting. We only have two per month. So I think there's ample time for us to do it without setting a deadline.
Okay. Yep. Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve 14D.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Marcano?
Councilmember Cano to approve item number 14B. D. Better get my glasses. Further discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
just at the beginning, I did want to thank you and Councilmember Marcano, as well as staff, for kind of working through how to make this function and have this as a provision in place. I think it's important because we do have a lot of different services that we provide to our community, and the demands and needs of our community are only growing, not shrinking. So even when we happen to have a good revenue year or be in a good revenue position, that doesn't mean that we're always going to be in that position. So we want to be thoughtful and ensure that we are able to continue to provide those services at the level that our community expects.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 14D. Call for the question.
Councilmember Coombs? Yes, thank you. The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2022-52.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 15A.
Item 15A is ordinance 2022-47, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending sections of the city code pertaining to mandatory minimum sentences for retail theft in the Aurora Municipal Code to combat the increase in organized retail theft and related offenses. And Mayor, we do have one individual who would like to speak.
Very well. Proceed with public invited to be heard.
Okay. Eric Schonholzer.
Hello again, long time no talk to. My name is Eric Schanelter, and I'm a resident and a business owner in the city of Aurora. Earlier today, I sent an email to a council member and asked a question, and I could not get an answer. So I did a few minutes of research for some numbers on shoplifting. These are national numbers, and the earliest thing I could find was 2019, so I'm sorry these are not really good, but it was a half hour of research. Shoplifting is largely exempt from the crime does not pay things that we often say. The chances of being arrested for shoplifting are about 1 out of 100, and about 48% of those who are arrested are repeat offenders. The average case value of theft in the United States is $125, but the average dollar loss per shoplifting incident is $559. Increased spending on security and loss prevention budgets go as high as 35% of the percentage of sales. 29.2% of retail shoplifting incidents have a value of $300 or over, which is the target we're looking at. Retailers with 500 or fewer locations report losses of $753.20, more than double that of stores with 500 or more locations. So obviously, we're hitting the smaller guys less than that. Okay, I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you.
Brief presentation by staff and then the sponsor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Pete Schulte, Public Safety Client Manager, City Attorney's Office. Just as a brief review of the first reading, this is a ordinance that requires a 3-day minimum sentence in the Aurora Detention Facility as part of the sentence. It's not the only part of the sentence. For anything over $300 that we are calling retail theft, the ordinance does define retail theft as theft under our theft statute 94-74 of our code of any goods or merchandise offered for sale by a business license under section 86-87. So any business that sells merchandise or goods would fit under this new definition of retail theft. The ordinance also provides for a 2-year sunset provision for us to be able to come back and provide information to council about the effectiveness of this ordinance. And it adds this to our general penalty section of the code, and that is also added to what we added for the motor vehicle theft minimum penalties back a couple months ago.
Very well. Councilmember Jurenski.
Yes, thank you. This ordinance is really to, start standing up for the business owners in this city and to start talking about the victims and addressing something to help the victims and stop doing everything in our power to help the criminals. And with that, I have a feeling I know which council member wants to go next, so I'll go ahead and let him, and I welcome this discussion.
Oh my gosh. Well, questions of staff or the sponsor? We'll get to discussion in a minute. Motion is in order.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did have a question.
Then I'll go to discussion. Oh, do you have a question?
Yeah, it was a question.
Okay, very
So
well.
we received kind of some information trying to get at the idea of fiscal impact. But the thread running through that is we don't really track in a way that would give us enough information. So do we have an understanding of how the city of Aurora's numbers with respect to theft and shoplifting compare to those national numbers that were given in terms of the average amounts of theft and shoplifting happening in our city?
Outstanding question, Councilmember Coombs. So after our last council meeting, I did talk to Chief Carlson about numbers. And the good thing about the RMS system, the record management system for the PD, is we can tell you how many cases were closed out as shoplifting. Now, I'll have Chief Carlson give you those numbers here in a second. But again, these are the offense reports that were taken. That doesn't mean we don't have the stats yet at the municipal court because we don't have a way to differentiate, like we talked about last time, between regular theft and shoplifting. But she'll give you some surprising numbers that it's actually lower than I expected. So,
Yeah.
Chief Carlson.
Yeah, Division Chief Cassidy Carlson. So when we look at the numbers, our crime analysts were able to pull shoplifting above that $300 threshold. So what we were able to find out for the arrest that we made, physical arrest, when we look at, I'll start with 2019. We had 59 arrests in 2019, dropped immensely in 2020 to 12, 2021 is 3, and in 2022, year to date is 11. But we also could issue a summons as well. So when we look at summons above the $300 threshold, same years, so 2019 was 118, 2020 86, 21 60, and so far in 2022 27. So when we look at those, if we combine those numbers, I'll do the math for you because it was done for me. 2019 for all adults, and these are for adults, so we didn't, just keeping that in mind. 2019 for all adults, 177, 2020 98, 2021 63, and year-to-date 2022 38.
Okay.
Mayor.
Let me ask a question first. And that is but isn't a lot of shoplifting not report, just that retailers have, I guess in a way, for a threshold like this, given up, where they're just not calling the police, they're not pressing charges for certainly higher amounts they probably would, where it might fit under a felony. But won't this drive more interest in terms of retailers to pursue charges where otherwise they would not?
Yes, sir. We do believe that shoplifting is underreported. Some retailers have different thresholds depending on what their corporate policy is. And so we do believe it is underreported, some of which is because the police may not get there in time to apprehend the subject. But I will tell you, as of late, we've actually had more reports through us doing some engagement with our retailers, some of the meetings that you've been at, and just really encouraging, and that's our message at this point, is we're really encouraging them to report this, the shop list, and we've had some successes of putting together some decent cases.
Well, I would hope that this would, I mean, it's a two-way street. So we're the enforcement end, but in terms of the retailers, I hope that they, pursue cases where otherwise they might not, knowing that there are some sanctions at our end that are substantive.
Mr. Mayor, just to comment on that too, we hope that with the discussion that the retailers that are listening to this discussion is that anything over the $300, they do cooperate, because one of the big things that we have to have at the prosecution level is we have to have the loss prevention individuals show up to court. And so we're hoping that this will give an emphasis on these type of cases, because there is a lot of things that we've heard is that, well, there's no penalty. They go to court, nothing happens. Well, now there is if this ordinance gets approved.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes, Officer Cassidy, I just had a question just about the numbers that you presented. So within these numbers, is that based on per incident? Can you tell also if it's people who are committing multiple offenses? I know, I'm just asking, is it within the numbers? Like for the 177, is that one person that's done that, or is it repeat offenders within these numbers?
I would have to go back to say for 100% and talk to the analysts that pulled this data, but my speculation is they would be per incident for these numbers that I was provided.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of staff or the sponsor?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Following along with actually the public invited to be heard testimony that we got, do you know what our rate is for apprehending suspects of theft?
I don't know our rate. That's a good question. I'd have to pull up the calls for service, which I don't have in front of me to give you that rate, but I could certainly get that to you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of staff or the sponsor?
Mayor?
Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I just have a question, the same thing. You had said that these stats are primarily for adults. Do we have any stats on under youth?
We do. I do have juvenile stats.
That goes to the county.
Right. Well,
Yeah, and again, those go to the county, the juvenile detention, as you know, Councilmember Medina, but.
yeah. I can read them to you, sir, if you're interested. Okay. So for let me find out. For juveniles, over the $300 threshold, 2 in 2019, none in the last 3 years, but summons over that threshold, which would be a typical response on our end. A summons over the 300 threshold would be 41 in 2019, 16 in 2020, 4 2021, and only 1 thus far over that 300 threshold for juveniles.
Further questions of staff or the sponsor? Seeing none, motion is in order. Councilmember Jurenski.
Motion to approve item 15D.
It's been moved by Councilmember Jurenski, seconded by
Sundberg.
Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 15A.
15A.
Discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. So I want to thank all of our presenters and our resident who testified earlier. And what I want to say to the sponsor is that I generally believe here that we all agree that we need to find a way to deter this behavior and then hold people accountable after the fact. But what the research has shown us is that it's not punishment that serves as a deterrent, especially with cases like this, but it's the certainty that people are going to get caught. And I was honestly really, really shocked to hear how low those numbers were on average for catching retail thieves. So what I will say is that we've already provided a chunk of money through grants to help folks upgrade their businesses. And staff, correct me if I'm wrong, we're still in the process of actually rolling out those improvements, right? And it was, what, $2.5 million? Councilmember Gardner, I believe you were the sponsor of that item, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So based off of that information, I'm, granted, none of this stuff has actually been installed just yet, but I'm wondering if it might be amenable to the sponsor to try a different approach here. Because the reason I oppose this to begin with, and I will continue to oppose it as it's currently written, is because jail is not a deterrent. It is an additional cost to the taxpayers of our city. We could be spending those resources to make the victims of theft right. And then the kind of accountability that we provide should be geared towards ensuring people don't recidivate, which is what we heard earlier. It's about a coin flip, basically, if someone is going to become a repeat offender. So, and this is something that, as written, doesn't apply to juveniles, because you can't jail a juvenile in Colorado, correct?
I mean, yes, you can, but we don't at the city level have the ability to do that.
Okay.
And they go to youth detention facilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So my point here is, let's maybe put resources into additional prevention, and then let's change our accountability process so that it can apply to both juveniles and adults, and actually require some kind of restitution or restoration or both from offenders, as opposed to just putting people in jail, because we know that that doesn't change outcomes. And in fact, a lot of the times when people go to jail, they just become better criminals when they get back out, because their life situation didn't change, but they might have made connections while they were in lockup. Whether it's 3 days or 60 days or 120 days, doesn't really matter. The point is, I don't think that we're going to get the desired results with this approach, but we have opportunities here to think outside of the box, try something a little different, and see if it actually works. So that's my plea to you, is maybe can we table this, work together on alternatives, and then come back with those alternatives?
Councilmember Jaworski.
So my answer is no, and I would like to follow up with that. We received a fiscal note with what they had available, and there's absolutely no financial impact from the judicial part of this. Court administration is saying roughly $75 per night, and the public defender's office really had no idea what the cost would be. But I mean, I look forward to what we've been hearing recently, that there might be cost savings that we can look at in dealing with the public defender's office anyways. So really what we're talking about is a cost of $75 per night. And I've heard you argue in the past that things like this and putting people in jail, put them in a grimmer situation, that they could lose their job, that it could, force people into poverty. But I think these alternatives that you're talking about, I heard you mention an ankle monitor in the last one. And just so everybody knows, in this city, the company that we use for ankle monitors is High-Tech. And High-Tech costs the person $11 a day plus $123 hookup fee, which equals $200 for a week due at installation, and any sentence of 15 days or less is charged a flat fee of $288. So, they also have ankle monitors that are also capable of alcohol monitoring if ordered by the judge. But some cons to this are most defendants don't have that money to pay up front. And this money for the ankle monitors has to be paid up front. If it is not paid up front at the time of sentencing, they go to jail anyways. They are sentenced to jail anyways. And this person needs to go to the provider to install the ankle monitor. So, now we're talking about these people who have been convicted. They've already been convicted of the theft. So now we're telling them that they need to pay $288 upfront at the time of sentencing, or they go to jail anyways, which essentially is what my ordinance is about. And they now need to figure out how to get to the provider to get it installed. They were just convicted of a crime, and now we're trusting that they're gonna go to the provider and get this installed. I guess at this point, that's where I start to lose faith. So when you talk about alternative, measures here, I went and I looked into this. I took the time to look into this and see what we're doing with ankle monitors in this city, and I absolutely think that puts somebody further into poverty. I believe that. I believe that makes somebody's situation even worse than spending 3 days in jail and having some time to think about their actions. The other thing I wanted to say is restitution is already being ordered in these cases, so that already is happening. Restitution is already happening, and the minimum mandatory jail sentence, that's a minimum mandatory. And what I also found out is that a fine is being issued. So really, the expense we're talking about to taxpayers of $75 a night in jail, this person is going to be issued a fine. So issuing that fine on top of expecting them to pay for this ankle monitor, which is not cheap, I find that to be more unrealistic and more humane than actually my 3-day in jail proposal. On top of that, our courts also have the ability to issue any of these classes to people. There's one called petty theft. My guess, and I don't, have authority over these judges, but in conversations that I've had, my guess is these petty theft courses, there's a 1-day program. There's also an online program. That's another $75 cost. Mm-hmm. Another $75 cost. So essentially, what your alternative proposal is to further bury them in cost. So I respectfully reject that, and I stand firm on the 3-day minimum mandatory jail sentence for any retail theft over $300. There is the sunset provision, and we can look at this. You and I can look at the data together in a year and see. And if it's not working, my fear, actually, Councilmember Marcano, is that I'm going to find that I need to lower the threshold to $100. That's my fear. I hope I don't find that in the data, but that's truly my fear. And with all of that, I cannot accept your proposal.
Further discussion.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I just wanted to say that I'm in support of this. I think for me, jail is a deterrent. I think for a lot of people, jail is a deterrent. And we're talking 3 days in a detention center. It's not like they're going to find out, horrible things from people in the detention center. I think it does help to deter that behavior in our city. It tells people that you're going to go to jail if you steal over $300, and hopefully, that will resonate with them, and they will think about that before they do steal. I think there's also a tremendous loss to the business owners, small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses. And I appreciate that we had the grant program for security cameras, but that really, isn't going to go that far with the amount of businesses that we have in the city and everything that they have to do to prevent crime. And why should they? I mean, they have to do it, but they're losing millions of dollars in some cases of revenue, or not revenue, but from stolen items. And what do we say to them? We're not going to do anything. So I'm in full support.
Okay, Mayor.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, sir. So first, I guess I'll address Mayor Pro Tem Bergen. I understand where you're coming from. I really do. I used to agree with you, but the data doesn't bear that out. Jail is not a deterrent. It's not an effective deterrent. To Councilmember Jurinsky, I'm glad that you spoke with the court administrator and the chief judge and maybe the public defender and other folks. I've done that already myself, and I was aware of all those costs already. Part of why I wanted a fiscal note for all of this stuff, which, by the way, we didn't get the full scope of that because the city attorney's office didn't respond, so we don't know what the prosecution increases are going to be. And I'm sorry, I just do not buy that there's not going to be any impact on the courts when there's going to be impact on both prosecution and the defenders. But that's another discussion probably for the ordinance that we passed earlier. The point I'm trying to make here is that I want to know what the overall cost is and the impact is, obviously, to small business owners, although what we heard is that this mostly seems to impact big box stores. Not downplaying it, but that seems to be what the data that we were given implies. But what do the outcomes look like in our city over the long term? Or are we just digging ourselves into the same hole that we're already in, where we just accept this kind of crime and we just basically create a revolving door, people going to jail repeatedly perhaps, their behavior not changing, public resources being spent to punish people, but not address the problem? And I think we can actually address the problem and change people's lives through effective intervention. And frankly, it's much cheaper for us to do that through having done things like raise the minimum wage and invested in housing long before we started doing it, things like that address the root causes of this behavior. But since we're choosing to be reactive, let's be reactive in a way that actually makes sense and that will deliver a safer city and better outcomes for our business owners and our residents as in total. So if you are willing, we can find ways to cover those costs. Because I want to know what the total cost of this path that we're currently going down is going to look like compared to paying for the classes, paying for the monitoring. And a lot, by the way, these programs, for you to get into those programs that you're talking about, those are done through before a trial is set. So you actually save on the court fees there to a fairly substantial amount, because they're basically pre-trial pleas that gets you into these programs. So there's a savings by utilizing those programs, as opposed to just going through this process where they will get a public defender, there will be a trial, and then they may be in jail after the fact. So that's where the potential for cost savings is. So I'm asking you to consider that. It's a different way to spend these resources that will improve our outcomes in the long term.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Protem.
Just wanted to address the deterrent issue. The National Institute of Justice did find actually some evidence that it is a deterrent on the low-level crimes.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Zvonek.
Yeah, I'm in support of this and hope my colleagues are too. I mean, retail theft is a significant issue. The numbers that we heard from Chief Carlson, as the mayor pointed out, don't reflect the number of crimes that are underreported. And what we heard from businesses, both big and small, when we met with them on the Havana Business District, was that without that certainty of penalty, which currently doesn't exist for some of these lower levels of theft, the time it takes for them to report when there's not a weapon involved, there's not another aggregating factor, they just don't report it. And so I believe that by having a certainty of penalty, we're going to see more reported, which will give us a bigger picture of this. And you know, retail sales tax from our retailers it's where our money comes from. And if we have retailers that don't come to Aurora, or that are considering leaving Aurora because they don't feel safe here, that has a significant economic impact. And this goes back to the conversation I had last week when we talked about the fiscal note. That's the kind of stuff that isn't considered, those secondary economic impacts. If a business leaves Aurora because they don't feel safe here, that's a huge impact to the city's budget. Or if they don't come here, that's lost revenue. I believe that by continuing to have an approach that says we're going to do everything possible within municipal code to ensure the safety of our residents, our families, and our businesses, it's going to be better for Aurora in the long term. And so I'm in full support of this, and I hope my colleagues are too.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Sundberg.
I think we look to other parts of the United States at some cities that are just failing miserably with being overly permissive when it comes to crime. And just take a look at San Francisco, a once charming, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful city. Redfin, the real estate company, indicates that that metropolitan area now leads the nation in metropolitan areas where people are leaving. Real estate values are going down. People are leaving still. The DA was recalled there, as you'll recount. Their convention tourism is decimated. Their mayor has changed her opinion on open-air drug markets. Walgreens has pulled out numerous stores. And 50% of their residents have been impacted directly by crime. So these overly permissive allowance, coddling of criminal attitudes and philosophies in our major cities are failing, and people want a change, they want a difference, and I don't want that for Aurora.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yeah, so just to the point of the cost, I do think we should actually consider that upfront requirement of the cost as well as having to send people to a vendor, because those are both, I agree, not very effective. But I know for me, if I lost my job, it would cost me a lot more than $350. And if you no-call, no-show to your job because you're in jail, you're going to lose your job. So I don't think that the cost of diversion programs, although I do think there's an issue with the cost of diversion programs, I don't think that it's comparable to the cost of losing one's employment, which can lead to many other downstream effects.
Let me just say, in talking to retailers, how difficult the situation has gotten. I mean, it's literally lawless. And I was talking to Walmart with their, what do they call, loss prevention individual that was charged in a specific store, and just saying that these thieves are becoming more aggressive in terms of, and they know the fact that it is such a permissive environment that there's no accountability. And so I think whatever we can do to change that equation, I think is just absolutely important. And I believe that when you deal with lower level crime, you potentially are dealing with higher level crime too, because people tend to graduate through the process. And so I think this is an important step forward, and I'm going to support it. Further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Coons.
So I just have a question on that basis. There's the idea that there's an overly permissive environment with our current laws. Are our judges currently not charging people who are arrested for the crimes that you cited?
Let me comment on that. We're coming out of COVID, and so a lot of the numbers that we're going to be in 2020, 2021 are less because of jails not being able to take individuals into custody and so forth. So I think that's part of the data that we're trying to see when if this passes and it moves on, we're going to be able to get more data on, moving forward, because the jails are open, both at our detention facility for these misdemeanors and also the counties. So we've lost really 2 years of data. So, and I think that's probably added to the problem, right? Because if people were out shoplifting, they were getting summonses and they weren't being taken to jail. And if they don't show up, then they get a warrant, and we've got to get around to actually taking those warrants and serving them, right? Getting people into jail. So I don't know if that helps, Councilmember Coombs, but that's kind of the void that we have in some of the data.
Okay, I understand some of that, but when people are in court on a summons, like, you can be fined up to $3,650 in the city of Aurora for
$2,650,
or
yes, ma'am.
$2,650,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry, for almost any crime. So when people are being apprehended and charged in court or convicted in court, are we fining people at a level that could be considered deterrent? Or, 'cause that's, I guess my question is just, what is meant by an overly permissive environment? Are judges using the authority that they do have to provide fines and other remedies to convictions?
So I'll tell you, with fines, if somebody is levied a fine, right, by the courts, state law doesn't allow us to put them in jail if they don't pay the fine, right? So the way that this would work, just to talk about that, is somebody gets arrested for shoplifting over $300, they would most likely get out very quickly on bond, right? Either get issued a PR bond or issue a bond. So what I would expect as a former defense attorney myself is I would tell these individuals, if we were set for trial, or if we were going to take a plea, that, hey, by the way, the law in Aurora is right now that if you get convicted after a jury trial or take a plea, you're going to have to do at least 3 days in jail. Now, I know a lot of the judges are allowing people to pick that time when they'll be able to do those 3 days, or they would go in that day, depending on what the judge decides to do. So as an example, they would be able to be told, they would be expecting to be able to tell their job and so forth, hey, I'm going to have to do this jail time. So, and again, I don't know what that's going to look like, because again, as as a public defender has told us during the motor vehicle theft discussion, 52% of cases get dismissed because of lack of witnesses, civilian witnesses, and a lot of that is included in the loss prevention folks. So again, we'd love to be able to provide the data to you. I just don't know what that's going to look like until we get into the process.
Further discussion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jersky.
just one more thing I wanted to say, that, Trevor Vaughn with tax and licensing, I'm not sure there's any city staff member I am more proud of than Trevor Vaughn, but he put together, through tax and licensing email communication that I had asked for that closely mirrored what the state does to communicate with business owners, and he has been doing wonderful with that. And so I think this will be a good way, and I'll talk to Trevor about that, but this will be a good way if and when this passes to communicate with businesses so that they know about this and will start reporting their thefts.
Further discussion. Seeing none. The question before us is the adoption of item number 15A. Call for the question.
The motion passes with 6 yes votes, 4 no votes from Councilmember Medina, Marcano, Coombs, and Murillo.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 17A?
Item 17A is Resolution 2022-186, public hearing and consideration to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, making certain findings of fact regarding the proposed annexation of a parcel of land located in the west half and the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 32, Township 3 South, Range 65 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Adams, State of Colorado, Harvest Road, Parcel A, annexation.
Is item number 17A, 17B, 17C, and 17D the same relative subject matter that can be given in one presentation?
A and B, and then separate for C and D.
Very well.
Different parcels.
Proceed, please.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, this is also a public hearing.
Oh. Public hearing is open. Presentation by staff.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. For the public record, I'm Jacob Cox, Manager of Development Assistance. A petition for annexation was filed with the city clerk for annexation of 161.9 acre parcel owned by Grimm Farms LLC. This parcel is located southeast of Harvest Road and 26th Avenue. Council made a finding of substantial compliance regarding this annexation on August 22nd, 2022. The annexation process follows state law, and annexations are considered over 3 council meetings. Tonight's agenda, the second meeting in that process in which City Council conducts the public hearing, considers approval of a resolution making a finding that the land is eligible for annexation, and considers the introduction of the annexation ordinance. This parcel falls within the city's annexation boundary and meets contiguity requirements. The initial zoning ordinance will follow at a subsequent council meeting by the planning department. The initial zoning shall follow the city's comprehensive plan. I'll note that we do have outside representatives available to assist with questions, but they do not have a special presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Presentation by the applicant?
No presentation. They're just here to answer
No
questions.
presentation by the applicant. Public invited to be heard?
There's nobody.
Very well. Questions of staff?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
So this is just the second part of the annexation process, but what we're doing is making sure that they're in compliance with the factors that would allow annexation.
That's correct.
So in one of the lists, it has being integrated with the city. Can you explain that?
Yes, it's adjacency to existing city infrastructure, and this parcel does meet that requirement.
Of infrastructure?
Correct.
Okay, so that takes into account any traffic that would happen down the road?
Well, that would happen with the master plan process, but yes, it's adjacent to existing development patterns of the city.
Okay, and then number 6 says that the city has a plan in place for the area.
Yes, that is correct. So we do have existing development in this area, and this, what this applicant is proposing would tie in with the context of that plan.
Okay, and then when we go to the, if this passes today, then we go to that third meeting, would they then, I don't know if that would be staff or the applicant, but would they have a fiscal impact study done?
The fiscal impact study is part of the city's process for expanding the annexation boundary. Typically, annexations don't provide that.
And the reason I ask that is because I have residents right now that are upset about a proposed development, and they were asking questions about, well, how did this end up in the city in the first place? You know, it had to go back in the history of when it was annexed. And there was a discussion of, are we annexing land without knowing if we have the proper infrastructure, water, roads, that type of thing? So we're not going to know until after they submit a master plan, I guess?
In the case of this annexation, there is a master plan in process concurrently with this annexation, so we just cannot act on that from an approval standpoint until the land is annexed, but it is concurrently being processed. So that would analyze the traffic, the master utility study, all pertinent documents related to the zoning context and engineering documents.
Okay, it just seems a little bit backwards, but thank you.
Further questions of staff? On 17E or 17B?
The only thing I can add for you is that typically this is sort of considered infill development, so generally we're already, around the area, and so that one is going to sort of impact the cost of development, and then two, in terms of the fiscal impact of the city, this is, as Jacob said, we have a master plan that's going through. This is primarily commercial in nature, and so from our typical fiscal impact studies, we know that commercial development is a net positive for the city in terms of cost of services versus revenues that are brought in. So we expect this to have a net positive impact.
Thank you. That actually makes a lot of sense since it's commercial, so I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Councilmember Lawson.
Jacob, I just had a general question. I think Mayor Pro Tem kind of addressed the issue about when the master plan comes through, then you'll be looking at all of the traffic and all of the water. But I guess, I've been on this council for 7 years, and we've annexed a lot of land. But then we kind of talk about we don't have enough water, and we have all these different issues. Going forward, because we do have a conservation plan now, I mean, is that going to be part of maybe the looking at things scope before we actually do these two particular master plans? Because again, we annex in the city, and then we're at the end of the day we're saying, okay, we might not have enough water to do this for commercial development or for rooftops as well. So what's going to be the plan going forward, especially since we've implemented a conservation plan on water of how we're going to be looking at annexations in the future?
We certainly work in conjunction with Marshall's staff in the case of this annexation for months, talking to Sarah Young and Marshall and his staff about the impacts of this annexation. But that's certainly something we're looking at proactively, and we're ensuring that the plan is complying with the comprehensive plan and any pertinent master studies such as the utilities for the city. So
let me just say that the city's policy even prior to the conservation ordinance, the passage of the conservation ordinance, is that we will have resources for 50,000 more individuals into the city. So I think that in combination with the conservation ordinance will help us in terms of future development.
So the only thing I was going to add for that is typically if something is within the annexation boundaries, typically the water department has included that in terms of their long-range water needs. So if it's already within our annexation boundaries, so that's there. But you do highlight a very interesting issue that Marshall has brought up, which is on the commercial side, certainly outside irrigation use remains a challenge, and it's something I think that we would like to see that, work very closely with our commercial partners to reduce those irrigation needs. And then on the commercial side, depending on the end user in that, you can see a really wide swing in terms of the water that's used. And so that's something we're talking to Marshall with. How do we try and get our arms around that a little bit better than, perhaps than before we get to a master plan? But it's an issue in terms of water use. The one we can control there is around our landscaping standards and those things. And so that's something that we're going to continue to work with Marshall and his team on to make sure that we're trying to be proactive on that front, and then trying to think about how we can think through water uses for commercial properties.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coons.
just following up on that, so is commercial versus residential use taken into account in the assumptions that are made about the annexation boundaries? Like, do we have areas that are generally looked at as this is probably going to be commercial versus residential, and then that range of possible water uses is accounted for?
They are, and so that's one, and so that's the problem there is obviously there's a much tighter range when you're talking about residential property, depending on how you'll see that, but you're pretty close once you're talking about residential modeling, but as we were talking about in commercial, it's a much broader, but we do look at commercial versus residential when we're bringing things in, and so we will often go to the comp plan, and we're looking at the place type that we have underlying that helps us kind of when we're looking at what projected water uses. So you see all these long-range planning documents come together in terms of comp plan, long-range water planning, annexation boundaries, and the like.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, this public hearing is closed, and a motion is in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Sundberg.
I move to approve 17A, and if it's procedurally acceptable, 17B as well.
I think we're going to have to do them individually.
Okay.
17A.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Sundberg, second by Councilmember Gardner to approve item number 17A. Further discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of 17A. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-186.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 17B?
Item 17B is Ordinance 2022-53, consideration of an ordinance annexing a parcel of land located in the west half and the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 32, Township 3 South, Range 65 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Adams, State of Colorado, Harvest Road, Parcel A, annexation.
No. Does staff have anything to add on 17B?
No, the prior presentation accommodates that.
Questions of staff on 17B? Motion is in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Sundberg.
I move to approve 17B.
Moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Gardner to approve item number 17B. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 17B. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Ordinance 2022-53.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 17C.
Item 17C is Resolution 2022-187, public hearing and consideration to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, making certain findings of fact regarding the proposed annexation of a parcel of land located in the west half and the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 32, Township 3 South, Range 65 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Adams, State of Colorado, Harvest Road, Parcel B, annexation.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Okay, good evening. Once again, for the public record, Jacob Cox, Manager of Development Assistance for the city. Again, this is associated with the prior items. There was a petition filed for annexation for a 147.5 acre parcel owned by Grimm Farms LLC, generally located at Harvest Road and 26th Avenue. Council made the finding of substantial compliance on August 22nd, 2022. The annexation process, again, follows state law and are considered over 3 council meetings. Tonight's the second in that process, in which council conducts the public hearing, considers approval of the resolution, finding the land is eligible for annexation, and considers the introduction of the annexation ordinance. This parcel is within the city's annexation boundary and meets contiguity requirements. The initial zoning ordinance will follow at a subsequent council meeting by the planning department. The initial zoning shall follow the city's comprehensive plan as well. So I'll note once again that we don't have a special presentation, but outside folks are here.
There's no presentation by the applicant?
No.
Is there a public invited to be heard?
No.
Very well. Questions of staff for the applicant? Seeing none, this public hearing is now closed. The motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve 17C.
Moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by?
Sundberg.
Seconded by
Councilmember Sundberg. The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-187.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 17D?
Item 17D is ordinance 2022-54, annexing a parcel of land located in the west half and the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 32, Township 3 South, Range 65 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Adams, State of Colorado, Harvest Road, Parcel B, annexation.
Brief presentation by staff.
Again, this is associated with the prior item's presentation, and this is the ordinance for that item. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve 17D.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Bergen.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to approve item number 17C. I'm sorry, D. Getting ahead of myself here. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 17D. Call for the question.
The motion passes to approve ordinance 2022-54.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 17E.
Item 17E is Resolution 2022-188, public hearing and consideration to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, making certain findings of fact regarding the proposed annexation of a parcel of land located in the southwest quarter of Section 25, Township 3 South, Range 66 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Adams, State of Colorado, 21861 East 26th Avenue annexation.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Good evening. Once again, Jacob Cox, Manager of Development Assistance. A petition for annexation was filed with the clerk for an annexation of a 5-acre parcel owned by Jose Javier Vesquez. This parcel is generally located east of Piccadilly Road and north of 26th Avenue. City Council made a finding of substantial compliance on this annexation as well on August 22nd, 2022. This process follows state law and considered over 3 council meetings. This process, in which City Council conducts a public hearing, considers the resolution making a finding that the land is eligible for annexation, and considers introduction of the ordinance. This parcel also falls within the city's annexation boundary and meets those contiguity requirements. The initial zoning will also follow at a subsequent council meeting by the planning department. The zoning will follow the city's comprehensive plan. I do not have outside representatives for this item, but I'm happy to answer questions.
So there's no presentation by the applicant. Is anyone from the public who wishes to be heard?
No.
Questions for staff? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. A motion is in order.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
motion to approve 17E.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by
Coombs.
Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 17E. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 17E. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-188.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 17F.
Item 17F is ordinance 2022-55, annexing a parcel of land located in the southwest quarter of Section 25, Township 3 South, Range 66 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Adams, State of Colorado, 21861 East 26th Avenue annexation.
Brief presentation by staff.
Again, this is associated with the prior presentation on the 26th Avenue annexation parcel regarding the petition for a 5-acre parcel owned by Jose Javier Vesquez. This is the ordinance for that item, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff? Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve 17F.
Approved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Sundberg.
Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 17F. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 17F. Call for the question.
Councilmember Gardner. Thank you. The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2022-55.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 17A. I'm saying 19A. Oof. Ouch. It's not
Item
that late. 19A.
Consideration to reappoint 3 members to the Citizens Advisory Committee for Housing and Community Development.
Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Medina.
Yes. Motion to reappoint Lynn Bittel, Terry Martinet, and Vince Chowdhury to the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Very well, the motion is to, now, Lynn Bettel is new, isn't she? Is that
It's a he.
reappointment?
It's a he. Lynn is a he.
What's that?
Lynn is a he. He's been on.
Okay, that's wrong on my sheet. Very well. Question before us is the adoption of item number 19A. It's been moved by Councilmember Medina, seconded by
Bergen.
Mayor Troy Bergen. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on item number 19A.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 19A.
Will the clerk please read the title to item number 19B?
Item 19B is consideration to appoint one member to the Aurora Fox Center Board.
A motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to appoint Patricia Connor to the Aurora Fox Arts Center Board.
Discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Mayor, second.
Councilmember Lawson to approve item number 19B. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, question before us is adoption of item number 19B. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 19B.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 19C?
19C is consideration to appoint one member and reappoint one member to the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee.
Motion?
Mayor?
Mayor. Oh.
Councilmember Sundberg.
I move to appoint Greg Bloodworth and reappoint Tom Tobiasen to the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee.
It's been moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by
Medina.
Second by Councilmember Medina. Discussion on 19C. Seeing no discussion, question before us is adoption of item number 19C. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes. Clerk, now please read the title to item number,
Councilmember Zvonik? The motion passes to adopt item 19C.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 19D.
Item 19D is consideration to reappoint one member to the Cultural Affairs Commission.
Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to reappoint Seth Tucker to the Cultural Affairs Commission.
It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Marcano.
Councilmember Marcano to adopt item number 19D. Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is adoption of item number 19D. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 19D.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 19E.
Item 19E is consideration to appoint one member to the Arts and Public Places Commission.
Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Medina.
Motion to appoint Laura Kiefer to the Arts and Public Places Commission.
It's been moved by Councilmember Medina, seconded by
Bergen.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to adopt item number 19E. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of item number 19E.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 19E.
Clerk, now please read the title item number 19F.
Item 19F is consideration to reappoint one member to the Homestake Steering Committee.
Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Mayor,
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve Alexandra Davis.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by
Coombs.
Councilmember Coombs to adopt item number 19F. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on item number 19F.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 19F.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 19G?
Item 19G is consideration to reappoint one member to the Joint Water Authority.
Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to reappoint Alexandra Davis to the Joint Water Authority Board.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Marcano.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 19G. Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 19G. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 19G.
Reports. Report by the mayor. Next week, I will remember the land acknowledgement to bring it down with me at the beginning of the meeting. City of Aurora acknowledges that we gather on the territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Ute, Arapaho, and Lakota peoples, past and present. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that made up the state of Colorado. Indigenous people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties that these nations have to their traditional homelands and to their vital place in the ecosystem are renewed and reaffirmed, and we are called to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as we continue to work to meet the needs of our entire community. Councilmember Lawson.
Mayor, could you defer to other council members? I need to find my report. I apologize.
Very well. Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to give an update on the item that we discussed last week on chemical sedatives by Aurora firefighters. Just want to thank Dr. Hill and some of our staff, as well as Councilmember Drinsky. We met today, and just want to let everyone know that Dr. Hill will be postponing introducing droperidol into the chemical protocols at least until the middle of November. That'll give us some time to work on those protocols and see if we can come up with a solution that works for our firefighters. And I just want to mention, for those who didn't see, the updated autopsy report on the death of Elijah McLean was released last Friday, and it was changed to ketamine as the cause of death. And so just want to reiterate the reason why why I believe this is important to do. And we have 2 firefighters on trial for murder for administering a sedative that they were told is safe. And firefighters that I've talked to, it scares them when they have 2 of their brothers on trial for murder. So just thanks to Dr. Hill for agreeing to delay introduction of droperidol at least until the middle of November, and we can continue to work on a solution that works for both parties.
Councilmember Drinsky.
Yes, I would just like to say Lashana Tova and Happy New Year to the Jewish community and all those who are currently celebrating. As well as over the last week, I attended the APS annual dinner. It seemed like there was some good money raised for APS, the Aurora Public School District, at that dinner, and it was nice to see, some of the staff honored. I also attended the annual police awards dinner, and it was really great to hear the stories of the courageous work of our police officers in Aurora, and to see that acknowledged and to see them honored. Both were great events. That's all I have.
Councilmember Zvonik, then Councilmember Lawson. Councilmember Zvonik.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Next week, a delegation of this body of my colleagues will be traveling to San Antonio to visit Haven for Hope. And just as a few of my colleagues had the opportunity to go to Houston in recent weeks, the purpose of this is to really explore options for how to address the growing challenge of homelessness in our city and in our region. I believe that when we get back from that trip, we'll be able to look at the 2 various options between San Antonio and Houston and find a lot of commonality, a lot of opportunity to collaborate and to be a leader on this issue. I do think there is going to be some differences, and we'll have the discussion or the debate about the direction to go. But I think overall, I'm excited about the opportunity to end this patchwork approach that we have currently to addressing homelessness, and to come up with a comprehensive plan that actually addresses the root cause of homelessness and focuses on changing the outcomes, meaning changing and improving lives and the human condition. And I will have a report back on that at a study session after the trip next week.
Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the Federal, State, and Intergovernmental Relations Report. With less than a week until the end of the fiscal year, Congress is working on a short-term continuing resolution to avoid a government shutdown on October 1st. The CR would fund the government through mid-December. Congress will then recess through the midterm elections before returning for a busy legislative stretch to the end of the year. One large item to address when they return is the Omnibus Appropriations Bill. The city has 2 requests for Aurora Water and the MLK Library. They're currently included in the House Appropriations package and will make it into the final bill. We are continuing on this committee to meet with our state delegations to build relationships and prepare for the 2023 session, and interim committees have begun releasing draft bills. Pfizer approved the state and federal priority documents for 2023 last week, and council will soon be receiving those drafts to provide additional feedback and priorities before hearing them at this study session in October. I also attended the APS dinner. It was great to acknowledge those programs that support the graduates and also that support the students at Aurora Public Schools. And I also attended the annual police awards dinner as well. So enjoyed both of those, and thank you for everyone who did attend. It was a great turnout at both events.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to give a big congratulations to the Food Justice Northwest Aurora, who hosted their inaugural Fall Food Justice Festival at the Fletcher Plaza at the MLK Library. It was a really great event. Free food resources, getting folks engaged around more locally grown foods, and we had representation from all of the different local food providers, urban gardens, farmers markets in the area, and in Aurora. So it was really awesome to see that partnership come together. And I just want to give them a shout out for a job well done.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been busy gathering no moss. Councilwoman Jurinsky and myself did a town hall recently with cats and dogs in the room, the EPA and a CAG group, on the lighthearted topic of the plume, PFAS in our water, and the landfill. I want to thank the staff of Aurora Water for being there to help stabilize the evening, but it was successful. Community College of Aurora, groundbreaking Center for STEM, Power Mechanics and Applied Technology, a 55,000 square foot building. I rode along with the abatement and outreach crew to see the procedures of abating camps, serving notices, and I want to commend Brant Van Sickle and Emma Knight on their professionalism and the way they deal with people. There's another full-time person coming to help with that. And one thing I did notice, Mayor, was I'm told that probably more than half of our people experiencing homeless are those in cars, campers, and RVs. So we are really probably in need of another safe camping area, and I think we should look seriously at that. A safe parking area. Went to the Historic Preservation Society. Did you know that there's an archaeological site, Francoise, near the Aurora Reservoir? And they also came out with an incredible coloring book. I meant to bring you a copy of it, Mayor. The Metro Housing Coalition. I attended that. I'll bring it, sir.
That's a disparaging comment, I think.
Metro Housing Coalition Sustainability and Energy was the topic. Aurora Public Schools Foundation, I won some great gift cards. The Aurora Police Awards, many incredible examples of life-saving and bravery. I mean, numerous life-saving awards were given out, so props to them. I also went to the Food Justice Festival at the MLK Library, learning about low-cost and free food, fresh sources for those in need. And I've also been visiting firefighters to learn about their opinion on chemical sedatives, and I'll be doing a ride-along on Thursday.
Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I attended the Highline Canal event and fundraiser. It was great to see a lot of people in support of the Highline Canal throughout the whole metro area, so I was glad to be there. My next town hall is Wednesday, October 5th, 6:30 to 8 at the Active Adult Center. We have a pretty packed agenda from budget to code and a couple other things, so we're pretty packed. Yes, I was thankful to see council members Murillo, Sundberg, and Marcano at the Food Justice event. I actually tabled an event there for the foundation I work with, so well attended and glad to see people out. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Connell.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Our next Ward 4 meeting is going to be on Thursday, October 13th at 6:30 p.m. We're going to be discussing the city's Build Up Aurora Road Maintenance Plan for residential street repairs, what traffic calming strategies we can build towards for all residential collectors and arterial roads to make our city safer for motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians, and the city's upcoming restorative justice program. And this is going to be the last Ward 4 meeting for the year, so don't miss out, and I hope to see you all there.
Councilmember Coombs.
Thank you, Mayor. My next town hall will be on October 18th at Heather Gardens Clubhouse, and we will talk about the Build Up Aurora program, the restorative justice program, and then we'll do an open forum and discussion on other issues that folks may have. And then we'll also have 2 meetings in November, because we'll have our quarterly meeting at Mission Viejo, in addition to our Tuesday meeting. And then as far as other reports for boards, Visit Aurora had a board workshop the 14th through the 16th. I was only able to attend the 16th because I was in Houston with the city's delegation for the other 2 days, but that is where we did the bulk of our work, and we talked about some changes that we're going to be making to the board committee structure to make the board a little bit more active and engaged on the issues of preparing for our city to become a larger and more wonderful place to live, but also a destination that folks want to come to, and making sure that folks know all of the great things that we have in our city. And then for Dr. Cog, we did finally approve the changes to the MetroVision Regional Transportation Plan associated with the greenhouse gas reduction targets implemented by the state legislature. And there were some changes to City of Aurora projects as a result of that approval that were then also approved in changes to the Transportation Improvement Program. All of that was unanimously approved by the board. And then Mile High Behavioral Health Care has our board meeting tomorrow morning. And the fashion show benefiting the Miracles program, which will be on Thursday evening at the Cherry Creek, Pelican Bay at Cherry Creek. It is sold out. So if you did not get a ticket, then you have missed out, but that's very exciting. It's a program that supports women recovering from addiction, and women with children are able to live there and provide care for their children while also going through their addiction recovery. So for those who are coming, thank you. It's a really worthy cause. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm glad you left the best for last. I had my Ward 6 town hall, and I want to thank the Aurora Fire Rescue team that came. We had a CPR demonstration, and then they talked about the different things that our firefighters do throughout the city. I attended, it was a busy week, a couple weeks. I attended the Southlands Wine Walk, which I always enjoy, very much so. I was also one of the speakers at the Windler groundbreaking, and that was a great event, just showcasing what Windler development is going to look like. And if you haven't taken a look at, the development plans, it's really, it's quite remarkable with a lot of sustainable features to it. I also attended the APS Relentless Gala and the Metro Housing Coalition, and then the Police Department Awards, and just want to congratulate all those that won awards that evening, and a special shout out because my State Farm agent's son, Michael Bear, won an award, so I want to mention him as well. And then I also had the E470 Roadway Committee. That's it.
Thanks, everybody. Meeting is adjourned.